Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. May peace be upon us. Excellencies, distinguished participants, welcome to the Westin Hotel for Indonesian Vaccine Manufacturing Stakeholders Meeting with DUKE-NUS and launching of Vaccine Collaborating Center for this hybrid session through Zoom meeting today, 26 January 2024. And we would like to express our appreciation and gratitude to all participants for the presence here and at the Zoom meetings. And before we start our ceremony, kindly please take your seat and be reminded to put your mobile phone into the silent mode. And for the online participants, please be considerate to change your name with name_institutions, and then keep audio mute when you aren't speaking, and if you are comfortable doing so, kindly turn your video on. We will start our ceremony presently. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the Minister of Health of Republic Indonesia will be arriving at the meeting venue. Excellency Mr. Budi Gunadi Sadikin, Minister of Health of the Republic of Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, kindly take your seats as the ceremony will commence shortly. Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good morning and warm welcome to Indonesian Vaccine Manufacturing Stakeholder Meetings with DUKE-NUS and launching of Vaccine Collaborating Center VOLARE Initiative. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, let us praise and thank God for His mercy and grace we can gather here today. Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to greet the dignitaries here with us and also through the Zoom meetings. Your Excellency, Mr. Budi Gunadi Sadikin, Minister of Health of the Republic of Indonesia. Excellency DUKE-NUS Professor Lim. Excellency Asian Development Bank ADB Dr. Patrick. Excellency Mrs. Lucia Rizka Andalusia, Director General of Pharmaceutical and Medical Devices. distinguished senior officials of the Ministry of Health of Republic Indonesia, and other related ministries and institutions. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to extend our gratitude and also appreciations for the present in this wonderful occasions. Today's event is hosted and organized by Directorate General of Pharmaceutical and Medical Devices, Ministry of Health of the Republic of Indonesia. Indonesian Vaccine Manufacturing Stakeholders Meeting with DUKE-NUS aims to enhance the collaboration and action to strengthen Indonesia vaccine manufacturing and regulatory system capacity. And ladies and gentlemen, once again, can we have a round of applause for our wonderful occasion today? Thank you. I am Santi Pradayini, and it is with a great honor I can be your MC for today's event. And before entering the core of the event, respectfully to all invitees, we would like to invite you to raise up together, and we will sing for the Indonesian anthem, Indonesia Raya. Please arise. Distinguished participant, you are pleased to have a seat. Your Excellency, distinguished participant, ladies and gentlemen, before starting the ceremony, let us pray together for all the success of our today's event. Kindly to have a pray together on your own belief. Prayer begin. Prayer finished. Thank you once again, Excellencies, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen. Now let us hear the report speech for this important occasion from Director General of Pharmaceutical and Medical Devices, Mrs. Lucia Rizka Andalusia. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mrs. Lucia Rizka Andalusia.
Excellency Mr. Budi Gunadi Sadikin, Minister of Health of the Republic of Indonesia, distinguished guests, Professor John Lim, Dr. Patrick, and also colleague from ADB, from senior official of Ministry of Health and other related ministers and institutions, colleague from pharmaceutical industry, researcher from university and research center, and all the distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, may prosperity be upon of us all, and Om Swastiastu Namo Buddhaya. First, let us praise and thank God for His mercy and grace. We can gather here today. On behalf of the Government of Indonesia and the Ministry of Health, I am honored to welcome you all to the launching of Vaccine Collaborating Center, or we call it VOLARE, and Indonesian Vaccine Manufacturing Stakeholder Meeting with DUKE-NUS and of the Regulatory Excellence, or CORE. I extend my warm welcome to my colleague, Prof. John Lim, and from the Center of Regulatory Excellence, DUKE-NUS Medical School, and also to Patrick, Dr. Patrick, and colleague from ADB. I also like to express my appreciation to all participants for having accepted our invitation and attending today's event. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, COVID-19 pandemic exposed vulnerabilities within national health system, including in vaccine delivery and distribution. Disparities in national vaccine introduction and delivery did affect to rapidness of tackling the pandemic. The availability and sustainable vaccine production needs to be supported by a decent ecosystem. The economy states there are 5 pillars that form the basis of a vaccine development ecosystem to achieve vaccine resilience, namely research and development, manufacturing, procurement, pricing and finance, distribution, logistic and supply chain management, and user acceptance and uptake. In order to build the ecosystem, Ministry of Health initiated a systemic and integrated strategy between stakeholders through Vaccine Collaborating Center, or we call it VOLARE. Accordingly, today, to elaborate this initiative, we need to strengthen our regulatory side through collaboration in a regional and global level, including collaboration among Indonesian vaccine manufacturing stakeholder and DUKE-NUS CORE. DUKE-NUS CORE and the Asian Development Bank have teamed up to strengthen regulatory resilience for public health emergency as part of ADB support to enhance COVID-19 vaccine access by developing member countries program. Ladies and gentlemen, today's event is conducted to involve key vaccine stakeholders in Indonesia to understand the opportunities and challenges for vaccine development to production. There will be more in-depth discussion regarding Indonesia vaccine landscape, challenges for each pillar in the vaccine development system, and exploring opportunities with our colleagues from other regulatory and support by ADB and World Bank. Furthermore, the result of the discussion will be elaborated further through Vaccine Collaborating Center, or VOLARE working groups. VOLARE will be the coordinating center for ecosystem support for the development, production, and utilization of vaccine products in Indonesia. The scope of VOLARE involves collaboration across various sectors through training hub or teaching factory, networking, bank data, and regulatory. I hope that this initiative can contribute to filling the gaps in Indonesia's health system. Let me conclude my report by requesting Excellency Minister of Health of Indonesia, Mr. Budi Gunadi Sadikin, to launch Vaccine Collaboration Center, or VOLARE, and open Indonesia Vaccine Manufacturing Stakeholder Meeting with DUKE-NUS. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Mrs. Lucia Rizka Andalusia, for your profound speech. You please to return to your seats. And ladies and gentlemen, distinguished participants, before we continue to our next agenda, let us watch the following video of VOLARE initiative.
World Health Organization pada 9 Maret 2020 mendeklarasikan COVID-19 sebagai pandemi. Hal ini berdampak terhadap sistem kesehatan di Indonesia yang menunjukkan terjadinya kesenjangan riset dan manufaktur vaksin. Indonesia semakin memandang pentingnya kesiapsiagaan. Indonesia mulai berupaya membangun kapasitas pengembangan dan manufaktur vaksin. Namun untuk memastikan upaya-upaya berbasis kesehatan masyarakat berkelanjutan, maka perlu didukung oleh ekosistem yang baik. World Bank pada penyelenggaraan workshop regional vaksin manufacturing di Desember 2022 menyatakan untuk mewujudkan ketahanan dan kemandirian vaksin, Indonesia harus membangun rencana aksi strategis ketahanan dan memastikan koordinasi antar kementerian atau lembaga dalam implementasi. Memperkuat dukungan insentif pemerintah, memperkuat kolaborasi dan kerjasama teknis dan finansial, meningkatkan kompetensi sumber daya manusia di bidang vaksin, jejaring laboratorium riset atau membangun center untuk mengkoordinir pengembangan vaksin. Berdasarkan rekomendasi tersebut, Indonesia melakukan berbagai intervensi untuk kesiapsiagaan pandemi mendatang melalui peningkatan kapasitas, business matching transfer teknologi dan pendanaan, kolaborasi riset dan uji klinis melalui jejaring global. Vaksin Collaborating Center atau VOLARE. VOLARE bertujuan untuk menjamin keberlanjutan penguatan ekosistem vaksin yang diharapkan juga akan menjadi platform yang lebih koordinatif, kolaboratif, dan sistematis dalam skema triple helix dalam menjalin sinergi antar stakeholder di bidang vaksin di Indonesia. VOLARE bergerak dalam mengkolaborasikan aspek-aspek riset dan pengembangan manufaktur, penyediaan, harga dan pembiayaan, distribusi, logistik dan rantai suplai, penerimaan dan serapan pasar di bidang vaksin.
Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, that is all our video introduction of the Vaccine Collaborating Center of VOLARE. And distinguished participants, now we move on to the speech from DUKE-NUS that will be represented by Professor Lim. Please be invited, Professor Lim.
Your Excellency, Mr. Budi Gunadi Sadikin, Honorable Minister for Health, Republic of Indonesia, Dr. Lucia Rizka Andalusia, Director General of Pharmaceutical and Medical Devices, Ministry of Health, Republic of Indonesia, and Head of the Indonesian Food and Drug Authority, Badan POM, Dr. Patrick Osewe, Director, Human and Social Development Sector's Office of the Asian Development Bank, colleagues from the Ministry of Health, and Badan POM distinguished guests. It's a great pleasure for my colleagues and I to be here this morning to join you, and on behalf of the DUKE-NUS Center of Regulatory Excellence, or CORE, I would like to thank the Ministry of Health Indonesia and the Indonesian Food and Drug Authority for your warm welcome here in Jakarta. It's been a few years since I've been here, and it's a delight to come back to Indonesia. We are very pleased to be here for the launch of the Vaccine Collaborating Center Initiative, VOLARE, and with your kind support to meet key Indonesian vaccine manufacturing stakeholders to better understand the opportunities and challenges of vaccine development, manufacturing, and regulatory system strengthening in Indonesia. Thank you for this opportunity to explain the background and context of CORE and also our engagement with you. The Center's mission is to actively promote regulatory excellence through regulatory capacity building, thought leadership, and policy innovation of health products and health systems in ASEAN, Asia Pacific, and increasingly at a global level. The Center was established in 2014 at the Duke National University of Singapore Medical School, or DUKE-NUS, with support from the Singapore government, and we're happy to be celebrating our 10th anniversary this year. We provide a neutral platform for stakeholder interaction, learning, and discussion with a strong focus on regulatory science. And our capacity building programs include our graduate certificate in health products regulation, with modules that have applied the DUKE-NUS team-based learning pedagogy to train over 2,000 local and regional working professionals, with significant participation, I must add, of colleagues from Badan POM. And our faculty comprise nearly 200 international experts from more than 70 organizations, including top national regulatory authorities and leading industry players. Our think tank initiatives have convened multi-stakeholder roundtables, seminars, and conferences to raise awareness and facilitate progress in new challenges faced in health products and services regulation, which includes trending regulatory issues that are related to innovative clinical trials, digital health, advanced therapies, and patient engagement, among others. In addition, CORE plays advisory roles based on our reputation as a neutral academic center with an extensive international network of regulatory experts from government, industry, and academia. And ultimately, we aim to create an environment to strengthen regulatory systems, reduce regulatory burden, and to promote South-to-South collaborations. Regulation, as we all realize, especially after the COVID-19 pandemic, is closely linked with policy, and increasingly we are seeing transnational regulatory issues that cross borders. Recognizing the importance of the global health impact of good regulation, CORE is also working with our academic medical center partner, the SingHealth DUKE-NUS Global Health Institute, or SDGHI, to develop and strengthen health policy analysis capabilities in the region for policymakers. And so we have been working with various multilateral organizations such as WHO, APEC, ASEAN, and specifically the Asian Development Bank, or ADB. We have been working in close collaboration with ADB since 2015 on regulatory systems strengthening in Asia and the Pacific. And our first project from 2015 to 2017 focused on developing overall regulatory systems strengthening roadmaps for national regulatory authorities in the greater Mekong sub-region in relation at that time to malaria elimination. We are now engaged in a second project with ADB that looks at regulatory systems strengthening for future public health emergencies following on from the experiences of COVID-19. The current project covers North, South, and Southeast Asia, and includes the Republic of Korea, Bangladesh, India, Indonesia, and Singapore. And this project aims to inform the ADB's health sector group of the regulatory landscape in these countries, specifically in relation to regulatory factors for vaccine manufacturing. Vaccine production self-sufficiency has emerged as an important theme in securing future regional health security. And with Indonesia as a key stakeholder, this project aims to lay the foundation for strengthening regulatory systems and building resilience to manage public health emergencies. The experience and insights from Indonesia will be most valuable and critical in defining the way forward as you are a leader in vaccine manufacturing in the region. Over the years, CORE has also had the good fortune to have engaged in various ways with Badan POM on improving national or regional regulatory capacity. We've enjoyed many graduate certificate participants from Badan POM, highlighting the trust and goodwill between our institutions. In addition to CORE's previous visits to Jakarta, we've been happy to have hosted delegations from Badan POM several times over the years. And these meetings have served as a platform to exchange views on current regulatory issues as well as innovations in healthcare and health products. And I'm happy to share that we are finalizing a memorandum of understanding with Badan POM, further demonstrating the commitment to this partnership. In closing, I would like to reiterate how delighted we are to be again in Jakarta to build on existing partnerships and explore new collaborations to advance regulatory system strengthening and to promote health policy innovation. As the COVID-19 pandemic has shown us, regional and global partnerships are critical for shaping sustainable and practical ways to advance health system strategies and policies, and to develop sound regulatory frameworks to better prepare us for future health crises. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Excellency Professor Lim, for your speech. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, now we move on to the speech from ADB that will be represented by Dr. Patrick. Please be invited, Dr. Patrick.
Thank you very much. I would like to acknowledge the presence of Minister Budi and Ms. Rizka that we've been collaborating with for the past 1 year, and all the other distinguished guests who are here in this room. So the Asian Development Bank, popularly known as ADB, is the second largest development bank in the world after the World Bank. We have 68 member countries. 42 of those countries are developing member countries. We were very much challenged during the COVID-19 vaccines, epidemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, because we were not prepared as an organization to be able to respond to a crisis of this scale. But we moved very quickly to allocate $20 billion to support all our member countries to respond to the pandemic, building the health infrastructure, and also provided direct needs to the people because there was no employment, businesses were closed, and people were really suffering. Beyond that, we allocated $9 billion to purchase vaccines. It was one of the most challenging periods for our organization because we had the money, the vaccines were not there. We tried a lot to engage with 12 vaccine manufacturers to try and get vaccines, but it was difficult because access was limited. At the same time, many vaccines that were being produced did not meet the threshold that was set by ADB, which meant that the vaccine needed to be manufactured in a country that had a regulator with maturity level 4. Many countries do not meet that criteria at that particular time. Things have changed, and now a few countries are meeting that criteria. So as a result of that, almost on a weekly basis, we talk to manufacturers in the Western world to see what were their projections in terms of the vaccines that were being produced and how would Asia get those vaccines. And we were able to purchase and distribute more than 800 million vaccines across the Asian continent, but it was not very easy. We then identified that if Asia needed to be independent of the Western world in terms of vaccine production, we must focus on strengthening our regulators to be maturity level 4. And so we invested very heavily. First, we established the Regional Vaccine Advisory Group, which consisted of 12 regulators. This advisory group was chaired by the Therapeutic Goods Administration of Australia, co-chaired by Indonesia and India, and consisted of other regulators like Korea, Japan, People's Republic of China, Thailand, Vietnam, Singapore, Philippines, the MHRA of UK, the UK regulator, and the Health Canada, the Canadian regulator, and WHO. And we met every quarter to look at what was the emerging evidence regarding COVID-19 vaccines. What were the challenges? What did our countries need to do? What were the issues around pharmacovigilance across many, many countries that Asia could learn from? So very successful initiative, and there was a lot of support from all these regulators. We continue to meet, and now the next meeting will be to discuss what's the best way to support our developing member countries to strengthen regulation to achieve maturity level 3 or maturity level 4. We are providing resources to Bangladesh and capacity building to Bangladesh to move from maturity level 2 to maturity level 3, and we'll be discussing with BPOM if we can collaborate to strengthen the capacity to move from maturity level 3 to maturity level 4, so that in future, if there is any pandemic, we do not need WHO to provide any emergency use listing. Any approval by BPOM would be sufficient. We've also spent a lot of effort identifying capacity in the region and linking with where that capacity exists. For example, the mRNA technology or the vaccine manufacturing, the skills are missing in many of our countries. And so we are in partnership with Yonsei University of Korea to provide an 8-week course to be able to build the capacity of our developing member countries. And Indonesia has benefited from BPOM, biopharma, and other aspects, other parts of Indonesia, the private sector in Indonesia. And out of we have trained almost 60 participants over the past 2 years. So as ABD, we are very much focused on vaccine manufacturing. We realize that this is what our region needs at this time. We do not want to go through what we went through last time, and we are here to work with Indonesia, to work with the region, to support public sector, to support state enterprise to support private sector to achieve that objective of making sure that the region is resilient. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency Dr. Patrick. You are pleased to return to your seat. And ladies and gentlemen, distinguished participants, now we move on to the speech from Minister of Health of the Republic of Indonesia, Mr. Budi Gunadi Sadikin. Please be invited, Mr. Budi Gunadi Sadikin.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. So I joined this position around 3 years ago. The first task given to me is to execute the vaccinations and to overcome the pandemic. And I had bad experience on how to deliver the job. And I can share with you what I remember from 3 years ago. The first one, there is no vaccine manufacturer which is interested to Indonesia, selling the products to Indonesia because they don't believe that we have money. Although I try to convince them, and as an ex-banker for 30 years, I'm quite persuasive in convincing people. They don't want to see it. But many other countries, especially developed countries, that has money, that has access to it. So then, something that I learned, you need money to do this. And then finally, we get some access to vaccine manufacturer, not the best one, of course, because the best one is already occupied with the rich countries. And then the other vaccine manufacturer realized, hey, oh, this guy is actually have money. So let's deal with this guy. So the second issue that I have is, of course, then the schedule is behind all the rich countries. Because they have money, they pay much more expensive than I did, because that makes me happy because I can pay 25% and 20%. I can put my developing country phase and get a discount, a heavy discount from the vaccine manufacturer for this one. And I realized that the issue is because during research and development, the country that has money lock in the first right of production. Then the second thing that I realized, hey, you need a research and development capacity, because otherwise it's very, very logical. Every political leader will try to protect their political constituency first. So the second thing that I learned, research and development is a key. And then we start, getting all the vaccine. And we start getting all the vaccine. Suddenly, one big country that produce a lot of vaccine, stop the export of that vaccine, their vaccine, because the country is not doesn't have enough vaccine at that time, and the case is increasing drastically, and we got nothing left. So our schedule to vaccinate our people getting jeopardized because of this event. We tried to lobby the international organization; it didn't work. And again, as a minister, I understand because this country also have a very large population. They are dying, and they produce a vaccine and they cannot use the vaccine. That will be politically impossible, to explain to the people. So then I learned the third thing. For a large country, you do have to have the production locally. Impossible. It is impossible. If not. And then there are many other funny things happens. Like example, suddenly at the end of the period, everybody donating the vaccine, all the rich country, I realized, because maybe the rich country, when they book 3 times the population or 4 times the population and suck all the productions of the vaccine globally, they didn't realize yet, but there is an expiration date in the vaccine. So when it's close to the expiration date, they spend billions of US dollars. Oh, I will look very, very ugly in terms of my parliament member. So let's make this bad opportunities to good opportunities by donating the vaccine to Gavi, and then we will look good, because at the end of the day, we look bad before because we grab everything from my people, forget about, the developing countries. Now we look good, we help the developing country, Although, yes, they have to die more because they're several months late, but then we look good because we are donating all the vaccine, which is close to the expiration date. And because Indonesia at that time we can do 2 million jabs per day, then we are one of the countries that get all the benefit because they send it to other country in one region, but they send it, they cannot deliver to the to the arms of the people. In Indonesia, we can do 2 million. So if anyone call me, Budi, I have 5 million, but the expiry date is only 1 month. Can you do it? Let's do it. I can do 2 million a day. So that's why we can accelerate. And by the way, it's good also for Indonesia, although a little bit late, that we have enough vaccine. I think out of 800 million, we did 410 million jabs in 18 months. I think from 400 million, 150 million-ish is donation vaccine. So instead of I plan my budget for 400 million, I only have to pay 250 million. I have reserved quite a lot of money and give it back to Ibu Sri Mulyani. But that is what we learned on stage. So what Indonesia did, and at that time we are also the president of G20. So we insist that we need to establish a fund. WHO is a very nice organization, but international organization with money, you cannot do anything. You can advise, but you cannot do anything. You need money, and you need a lot amount of money. So during our presidency, we initiate the establishment of the pandemic fund. It started with 2 billion, which is okay, and we advocate all the banks as a banker to treat this fund not only a peacetime fund but a wartime fund. Not only a development bank practices risk management and approval process, but also for emergency approval process. I'm a banker, I know. When you ask the loan from commercial bank, investment banker, you can get it in a week. You talk to the normal commercial banker like me, you get it in a month. You talk to development bank, you get it in a year. And we have a lot of money during COVID, but it came late. It came late. You talk to Steve Berkeley in Gavi, yes, it comes, but it came late. Because why? Because all bankers globally, or before I give disbursed loan, hundreds of millions, I need to see your strategic plan. Of course, there is no strategic plan. I want to see whether the vaccine has been produced. Of course, it's not yet been produced. It's only in the mind of the scientists. And I understand how come, even the commercial banks, they cannot take that risk. And you talk about development bank, it's incomprehensible for them to do. When the vaccine is already produced, they can write memo, they will disburse billions of dollars, it's okay. But, during crisis, it is incomprehensible for the risk management in any bank to approve it. ADB is one of the fastest. I have to admit, when we talk about, it's different whether you approve or you're progressing, you are asking, then the money is received. Yeah? In terms of money is received, I think ADB is one of the fastest. That we receive the money. It's still, we want to receive the money 6 months earlier or 8 months earlier, but at the end of the day, we receive the money. And the same thing happens with many international organizations like Gavi or WHO when we talk about this. So, first initiative, get the pandemic fund. So make sure that we have enough money and make sure the pandemic fund is designed to be able to take the risk quickly. Not to take the risk like the normal development bank. It should be like IMF model of taking the risk. In a week, they come, you have problem, we give you money. 200 billion US or 300 billion US. You go to or you go to any pharmaceutical, the best pharmaceutical company, the 5 in the world. You have any ID? What are your ID? You don't have any product, you don't have any plan, you don't have any strategic plan. If you have great IDs, I fund you. 100 million each. Very difficult for normal bankers to assume that risk. But this type of risk management should be inherent in the system. The second thing that we are doing, Indonesia is lucky that we have Bio Farma, state-owned vaccine manufacturing company that produce, the capacity is around 3 billion doses. But at the time, we don't have the technology. And this is a state-owned company. I used to be the Vice Minister of State-owned enterprise. I know exactly how they work. So I said, as the Minister of Health, we have already 75 years of Indonesian anniversary, and we only have one. So let's have more. And during the last 3 years, I add additional 3. So now we have 4 vaccine manufacturing companies, and 3 of them are private. And 3 of them, produce vaccine based on the technology that biopharma doesn't have yet. Biopharma can only produce the virus-based or protein-based. We don't have technology to develop an mRNA-based and factor-based. So these 3 additional private companies now can produce the 4 vaccine technology and increase our production capacities to 3 billion to 3.5 billion. My objective to be safe based on our planning, we need to increase this to 5 billion per annum. Doses, not vial, doses. 5 billion capacity with 4 underlying technology. mRNA, factor-based, protein-based, and also virus-based. And now we have 4. 3 already in productions. 1 will become very, very soon. And we spread the source of the technology from the Western country and in China. So we have diversity in terms of technology that can accelerate and establish competitions in this private company. So as a regulator, I feel safe because now I have 4 vaccine companies doing this. And after the productions, then we make sure we have to have the research and development capability. That's why I asked to Ibu Rizka, let's establish this one. And I know, I'm bankers, I know, private company in developed country, this vaccine manufacturer are a private company. So, yes, they have responsibility to their shareholders. So that's why we need to find a way how to do the research and development and bring it back to developed country. So during G20, we started sessions with southern country because if you notice, most of the vaccine research and development is done at the northern country. It's the same Indonesia in the world also like that. The northern part of the world is usually more developed than the southern part of the world. So we work with the South America, Brazil, Mexico, Argentina. We work with southern part of Asia, Indonesia, India, and we work with southern part of Africa, which is South Africa, to make sure that we build the research and development capacity. Research and development capacity. I use my banker's advocacy skill to the max. I put Ibu Rizka as a board member of SEPI. I lobby fine to put one of my Director General also as board member of fine. I was asked by Manuel Barroso and Steve to be the board member in Gavi, so I entered. So every international organization, we put our voice and representative to make sure that we are being heard. So advocacy for developing countries. Now we have representative in every international organization in vaccine to make sure that our idea that, hey, this research and development, this manufacturing of vaccine is very, very critical to be spread over southern countries, just to make sure that the equity principle of SDG target number 3 is being achieved. To promote healthy life and well-being for all people, not the southern country people, for all people. It's an equity principle and just principle in that particular word in SDG 3. Not only rich people, but also poor people, all people. Not only, people that live in the cities, but also people that live in the villages. Not people that live in the continent, but also people that live in the island. So this principle is something that we uphold, and we would like to advocate to every international organization the importance of being, having a healthcare resilience in country. So that is on the research and development side. The government will pour in money. Hopefully, as I said, Ibu Rizka, this year I need to have that mRNA vaccine module to be installed in Indonesia. We will install the first what do you call it, a very compact mRNA vaccine module, and I would like to open it to all researchers in Indonesia, all university researchers in Indonesia. Yeah. They can design a vaccine for any whatever dengue, tuberculosis, malaria, and send it to our center, and we can produce very quickly in a month. The prototype. If it works, then we can replicate easily. That is the beauty of mRNA technology. Although not all vaccine can be treated this way, but at least we would like to provide a platform where we have this lab, like a lab for all university in Indonesia. If they have a researcher that interested in vaccine development, can use it. So I put the target in Ibu Rizka, bring that machine. So I think it's Brussels or we know it from Bill and Melinda Gates, because they are also very keen during our discussion in SAPI to distribute this capability globally across the world. So we would like to install it this year so it can be used for as many as researchers in Indonesia, and we will open it to any developing countries from Brazil, from Argentina, from South Africa, to make sure they can send the researchers and utilize this machine. Or we can advise them, if you want to, this is where I buy this machine, and you can buy it. It's not that expensive. But at least with this model, they can do research until lab production in 3 months pace. And that is very critical to develop that capability. I also said to Ibu Rizka, and that is on research development. I talk about manufacturing, I talk about money, and the last one is on regulatory platform. Indonesia regulation is very so when I start focusing on this one, I hire a very expensive consultant. Let's see all the regulation of China, India, Singapore, all the ASEAN and G20 countries comparing, and let's make the regulation the best compared with all the others. So now we use that input to change the law. Indonesian 11 antiquated healthcare law now is being abolished. Last year, we changed it to a single, very modern Indonesian healthcare law. It's not only related with vaccine, but other things. Also, how to manage and educate the doctors. Which is many of my colleagues said, Budi, you are a very brave man, talking about these professions. But anyway, we fixed that one, and now our ecosystem, regulatory ecosystem, hopefully the government regulation will be soon, but it will be issued. We will be one of the most competitive globally. One of the most competitive globally. To give you an example and proof, because the proof of the pudding is the result, not only in the talking, right? Indonesia before have a material transfer agreement avoid us to make clinical trials. No company want to do clinical trials in Indonesia. So I talked to MSD, I talked to Pfizer, I talked to the CEO, many CEOs in the World Economic Forum. They said, Budi, you're ridiculous. So we abolished that law. Now this year, Ibu Rizka have a target for me. She said 4 of them will be run very soon. The clinical trial dengue, clinical trial 3 from MSD. The clinical trial of tuberculosis, level 3 from GSK, Bill and Melinda Gates. Clinical trial of malaria vaccine, level 2 by Sanaria, US company. And the clinical trial level 3 for PCV vaccine from World Vaccine. So we will invite the clinical research organization, global clinical CDO, what is it? Clinical CRO and CDO, what? CDMO. We will invite all CRO, all CDMO, come to Indonesia, establish a very large central lab, the capacity, and invite everybody to come. We have very large population. This is the best guinea pig samples, and we are not healthy our population. You can do a lot of things with Indonesia. But by doing this, then they will transfer the expertise, for our Indonesian researchers. Because we will do, my target, at least we can do 500 clinical trials. Give me 4, which is nice. Before is only 4 in 20 years, now 4 in 1 year. But I want to get 100 and 500 every year. It's not only vaccine, treatment and medicine, etc. To accelerate, to ease the regulations and to accelerate that one. And with this new law, it gives a lot of power to the Ministry of Health, regulatory power. So, and for me, I'm a very practical person. If anyone come, this is so difficult to regulation, I will change that. to make sure that our regulation will be the most competitive, so we can accelerate development of these advanced products in the country. Not only vaccine, but also biotech products. And that is also, I think that is the future of so those are the things that we are doing, ladies and gentlemen. So I welcome you, congratulating you to establish this initiative on regulatory platform, and also congratulations, Bu Rizka, for the launching of VOLARE. But make sure that the government will do anything to make sure that we have a national health system resilience. So we need to have the research and development and manufacturing capacity. I talked with many, the owner of Indian Serum Institute, the Pfizer CEO, the MSD CEO. They said, Budi, how can we make a manufacturing capacity, but there is no commitment to buy? It will be very expensive. Most of them are private sector. It's easy. You make that vaccine in the country with a large population. Why? Because we will buy regularly vaccine. It will justify your business model. So that is the reason that we will open up our market, but you have to build the research and development and manufacturing in Indonesia. And the government regulation will geared upon, we will buy the vaccine that is produced in Indonesia. Because why? That is the way we build the national healthcare system. We will buy the vaccine that is produced in Indonesia in the beginning to make sure that we have the resiliency being prepared. Because our experience, all the politicians will be under a lot of pressure during pandemic if something happens. So that's why we need to have. And then that will justify to have an extra capacity that we can send over to the world. So Ibu Rizka and team, again, congratulations. You have a very tough job ahead. And before I retire in the next 9 months, I will chase you like hell to make sure that you achieve the target that I achieve. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency Mr. Budi Gunadi Sadikin, for your insightful speech. Kindly please to remain on stage to conduct the launching session. And we would like to invite to join on stage to participate the launching session, Excellency DUKE-NUS, Professor Lim, to come on stage, Excellency Dr. Patrick, and also Excellency Ibu Lucia Rizka Andalusia to join on stage. We would like to do the launching ceremony, and we urge you to stand according to the designated place. Please be ready and kindly place your hands on the button at the LED screens. Be ready. Allow me to do the countdown. 3, 2, 1. Give round of applause. Vaccine Collaborating Center VOLARE initiative has officially launched. We'll do for the first photo sessions. Please look to the camera. 3, 2, 1. Once again. Okay, we will do for the second session, for the photo session. Please, for the Excellency Minister, Director General, and also Mr. Deputy Ambassador, President Director Muhammad Kashuri, and also Ibu Rita Endang, to have a photo session with all the participants. Please kindly to have a photo session. Please everyone to have a rise. We'll do the second photo session together with all the participants, and please come closer to the main table. Please kindly for all the participants in this venue to come closer with the main table, as we would like to do the second photo session together with the Excellency Minister, with also Director General, Deputy Ambassador, President Director, and also with Muhammad Kasuri and Ibu Rita Enda. To everyone, to distinguished participants, let's everyone to have a rise. 3, 2, 1. Once again, 3, 2, 1, yay! That's all for the photo session. You are pleased to return to your seats. And once again, to distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, the Vaccine Collaborating Center VOLARE initiative has officially launched. Once again, please give round of applause for our today's event. We would like to extend our gratitude to Excellency Mr. Budi Gunadi Sadikin, the Minister of Health of Republic Indonesia. Thank you for your presence here, for opening our launching ceremony. You are pleased to continue to the next agenda. Once again, thank you very much to our Minister of Health of the Republic of Indonesia, Mr. Budi Gunadi Sadikin, for opening our launching ceremony. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, you are pleased to return to your seats, as we would like to continue for our presentation sessions. Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, to continue our agenda today, we will have an entry presentations. For the first presentation, I respectfully invite the Director of Pharmaceutical and Medical Devices Resiliences to Bapak Roy Himawan S. Farm APT MKM to come to the stage for delivering the first presentations. Please welcome Bapak Roy Himawan.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, and may all of the good belongs to us today. Thank you very much for attending the event, and allow me to represent Ibu Deputy Minister on providing the information with regard Indonesia vaccine landscape. So we would like to continue the discussion that what Excellency Minister has said before, that we are learning a lot from the experience of the last 3 years. So that's why we would like to describe to colleagues today why we need to collaborate based on this information. Next slide, please. So I would like to start with what Minister Budi said in health system transformation. And next slide, that we see what Mr. Budi said about the regulation itself, then will be implemented in 6-pillar transformation, ranging from primary care, secondary care, and also what just he said before, the health system itself that should be transformed to be more resilient. This is will be happen only with support by the health financing, the health talent, and also the health technology transformation. I believe we already aware that Pak Budi said before, we are working a lot on research and development that we believe will provide advancement in health technology. Next slide. So we would like to underline that this vaccine is remain a part of that transformation. So when we talk about vaccines, it's not only about achieving, providing health services, but also to transform the health system. So under his direction, his guidance, this transformation will provide increasing number of antigen provided to the people, to the babies, to the children, to the healthy women, to receive more protection by adding another antigen to provided through vaccination. So this is what literally described Pak Budi said before. We will provide the industry good situation, supportive condition for them to bring the production here. So next slide. So this is to illustrate how much we consume the vaccine in a year. So if you may see the graph, this is the baseline for our national immunization program, not with mention the private sector that also consume vaccines. We may see the graph of more than 150 million doses needed a year, ranging from BOPV, hepatitis B, DT, TD, up to Japanese encephalitis, which means a lot of number of doses, and which it means also a huge market for every manufacturers. Next slide. So I would like to attract your attention that even though we have a big market, but the research and development has not supported it yet. So on the next slide, you will see that the Ministry of Health just launched and do mini survey to our research and development resources, and we find a very interesting thing here. That we conduct the survey and we ask them how many human resource for a vaccine R&D do you have, to the research center, to the industry, to the ministries or national agencies, and we divided them into several groups in clinical trial researchers, clinical trial manager, pre-clinical trial manager, and the others. And sadly, we see there is still only 65% of respondents that feel we still need more human resources in this research and development. Maybe colleagues from universities also would like to underline that they also face the same thing. When we talk with medical practitioners, they said it is more easy to live like as a doctor rather than as a researcher. This is what I also heard from doctors who practice a lot. Not many people come to research and development because it's more easy to live as a doctor rather than as a researcher. But I don't know very well because I'm not a doctor. So colleague from doctor maybe also would like to understand on that. So this is the first fact that we see. The second slide, the next slide, will show us that we try to identify which capacity that needed for research and development in vaccines. Starting from the trial of proof of concept, move to animals, phase 1, phase 2, post-market bioequivalence until the post-market research database. And we ask them, how much do you invest on this activity? And sadly, we see there is still a lot of activities need support of investment. It means we make just illustrative bar of 10 million rupiah, which is a very small number. How much if you invest below 10 million, it means we need more. But if you invest more than 10 million, it means it is okay to do so. And what we see, more of activity, less being invested by our institutions. Next slide. And this is what also we found when we asked them, do you conduct research and R&D activities in the past 5 years? Then we make illustrative limit that if you do more than 10 activity, and we call it productive. But if you do less than 10 activity, we call it less productive by using the parameter of bioequivalence test, pathogen surveillance, seed trial, and also workforce training related to R&D. And sadly, we see most of them say that we are less productive. We do less than 10 research activity in a year. So this is what make us feel that, as what Pak Budi underlined before, we need to develop the capacity of our research and development in the vaccine field. So in the next slide, we want to bring your attention to what do we have now as a country on vaccine capacity. and how do our initiative, Ministry of Health initiative, to facilitate that. So as Pak Budi mentioned before, we are aiming to have more vaccines produced locally. We're aiming to produce HPV, PZV to be locally available in Indonesia, including rotavirus and Japanese encephalitis. Together with the mastery of the IT technology, as Pak Budi mentioned before, mRNA and also viral vector. And we understand to do this, we need to start from the beginning, from research and development, comes to production, and don't forget with the market assurance. Next slide. So with regard to the vaccine R&D facility, we will see that Indonesia have sufficient facility to do research and development of vaccine. Started from animal breeding, maybe colleague from Pusat Studi Satwa Primata Bogor may also understand and agree on this. Also, when we talk about animal testing, we have 3 institutions that already certified internationally. And with regard to clinical research, we already have 17 hospitals, in government-owned hospital that conduct clinical research unit. So we have a numerous resource of research. Next. But sadly to see, we are left behind in numbers of clinical trials. This is what Pak Menteri, Pak Budi said before, that even though we have more than 10,000 researchers, even though we have vaccine manufacturers, but in terms of clinical trials, Indonesia is left behind Thailand, left behind India, and as we see now, with the period of 14 years, we only completed not more than 62 clinical studies. So this is a figure that we are having trouble on research and development. Next slide. That's why under the health transformation, as Pak Budi mentioned before, we are targeting to have more and more clinical trials going in Indonesia, not only with the western part, but also with the eastern part of the world, that we are targeting to have more clinical trials available and executed in Indonesia. Next slide. So this is also to equip the R&D section that we believe by the advancement of biotechnology, it will provide support to our research and development. Through Minister's initiative on exploring the genomic potential, we are trying to put another resource of R&D by exploring genomic potentials. We see also this is what happened in other developing countries. More and more countries seek to genomic potentials and then to build the new vaccines, the new diagnostics based on this data. So this will bring us to the next slide, that we have the capacity to produce it. Minister already said before, Indonesia is #1 in the terms of manufacturing capacity, where we are able to produce more than 3.5 billion doses a year, supported by our 3 vaccine manufacturers, and most of the vaccines are already pre-qualified. So we have good capacity on manufacturing. Next slide. We also make progress that by adding more and more capacity of manufacturing in Indonesia. If before pandemic we only have 1 vaccine manufacturers, now we are going to have 4, with Abu Budi mentioned before, more and more technology to be equipped come to Indonesia. Next. And this is also stated the last explanation from Pak Budi, that we revamp the rule of the game. We make the law possible to do the health transformation be progressively implemented. So the law has been passed in the last year, so now we are on the implementation phase of the law. Next. And we would like to inform colleagues that we are very proud of our Indonesia National Regulatory Authority achievement, that based on the report provided by World Bank, we see their achievement mostly on all function assessed receive remarkable score. Most of functions receive 4 in scale of 1 to 4. It means that Indonesia is in the front of other countries on global benchmarking tools by WHO. And we also understand that Indonesian FDA also met one criterion to be included in the transitional WHO listed authority that will provide us more benefit and to show the world that we are working progressively on regulating the vaccines. Next slide. This is just to elaborate what our colleague from Indonesian FDA mentioned, that the scope of control span from the pre-market, the production activity, and up to the post-market phase. So to conduct it, we equip a robust regulatory that control vaccine quality along the product life cycle. Next slide. And not only with regard to regulatory, our vaccination ecosystem also include logistics and distribution, which are handled very highly digitalized. We thank to our manufacturers, we thank to the Digital Transformation Office that provide this capacity to the system, that we are able now to track each dose, started from the manufacturers until the doses come to the health facility. So this is what we learned from last pandemic, and the leadership of our minister, he really urged us to understand where is that dose now? Where is that dose now? So there, we made the system to monitor the doses, started from it coming to the country until it received on the people. So by having this complexity, in the next slide, we will see the initiative in the next slide. We will see the initiative of the nation, come to the next slide, that to make that complexity not being too complex, and to provide an ecosystem that provide advancement of each component, we conduct and we initiate collaborative center that we call it VOLARE. Next slide. So this idea based on CEPI mandate, CEPI knowledge, that there is 5 activities that need to innovate to provide a more resilient health system, starting from leveraging pre-existing insight about pathogens and platforms that we see in the research and development, comes to supporting innovation in the vaccine development model, and then goes to using operational excellence to accelerate development and manufacturing, and then promoting collaboration among stakeholders and enabling continuous generation and review of evidence to support rapid approval. That we believe this is the main role of regulatory aspect that we see, that we will discuss more with colleagues from DUKE-NUS. Next slide. So basically there is 5 pillars that support the ecosystem. If we extract previous slide information and make it into pillars, that we see that there will be 5 pillars started from research and development up to user acceptance, that's supported by robust and agile regulatory. We agree that there is a need of robust regulatory in the peacetime or non-pandemic, and we also need an agile regulatory on the wartime or pandemic event. So this is the ecosystem, this is the schematic that we are running on this collaboration. So next slide. So that's why the Ministry of Health come with the initiative of VOLARE that inspired. I don't know if if colleagues familiar with song from Gypsy that called VOLARE. Is there any of you aware of this song? Maybe the generation after me don't know the song, but generation above me like Pak Rahman or maybe colleagues. Oh, Pak Hari juga also understand about the VOLARE song. So it is the inspiration that we take, that we believe. The song itself tell about fly, the feeling of fly, having fly from the lowest step to the higher step. So this is what we take the lesson and we put the spirit to the collaboration. So we call it VOLARE, represent for Vaccine Collaborating Center, that aim to accelerate the development and production of vaccine for National Immunization Program and also for our pandemic prevention, preparedness, and response. Next. So we believe this collaboration should be conducted in a multi-helix way. We will provide many activity like technical assistance, business matching, also resource sharing, what has Pak Budi mentioned before. He want to have the facility of mRNA production be open to every researchers, not only for, I'm sorry to spell one university, but it's open for all researchers. This is what we're going to support, we're going to implement in this collaboration. Next slide. So I don't want to take your time too much, so allow me to conclude that readiness of research and development of manufacturing capacity is a must. Therefore, our system, through Indonesia Health Transformation, is ready to implement and to provide the capacity to Indonesia. And through this initiative, we are aiming to have your participation, we are aiming to have your intention and collaboration to develop and enhance vaccine system in Indonesia. Thank you very much. It's my own presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Excellency Roy Himawan, for your presentations. Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, now we would like to continue for our second presentation using the theme of the DUKE-NUS Center of Regulatory Excellence Core. I respectfully invite Professor Lim. Kindly to the stage, please welcome Professor Lim.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm going to make half of this presentation to tell you a bit more about the scope of the Center of Regulatory Excellence and how there may be some points of connection with what His Excellency Pak Budi has talked about. And then my colleague, Professor Tan Koi Wei Chuan, will talk about specifically the ADB project, which links back very directly into the vaccine manufacturing area. Next slide, please. Well, as I said earlier, the center is celebrating its 10th anniversary this year, and our theme that we have adopted is regulating the future of health. And what we have seen is there is a converging of health products and health services regulation, and this is very important for purposes of access, innovation, and sustainability, because generally the way regulation has been looked at in most national healthcare systems is that you have health services, health products, and health professionals regulated separately. But we've seen, especially during the pandemic, this is coming together, and I will elaborate a bit more in the next few slides. Next, please. This is a very broad approach to regulation, which is important, I think, for health policymakers and health systems, that you don't just look at regulation in a silo. There is an impact on the country, and the whole socio-economic system. And again, as Pak Budi was talking about, it does link to UN Sustainable Development Goal 3 if we're really going to do this well to promote access to health services, to health products, and essentially to promote a healthy environment for our countries. Next. The Center of Regulatory Excellence, when it was set up 10 years ago, was in response to our Economic Development Board that was talking to regulatory professionals and to the biotech industry. And they were commenting that based on regional needs, there was a lack of regulatory professional training. And so capacity development is extremely important as we think of ramping up capabilities, even in the biotech sector. So there was a focus on developing regulatory talent, promoting policy innovation, because we cannot do things in the same way that we've always been doing in the past. And also what is very important is to have networks established amongst regulators, industry, academia, health policy makers, and other key stakeholders. And this is as important for vaccine manufacturing as, in fact, for all therapeutic products and health systems. Next, please. So the center itself is based on this network of promoting collaboration amongst all the various stakeholders, building up to the two orange bars on top, where we want to strengthen regulatory systems. And although we started with a very heavy emphasis on health products, we're also looking at the regulation of health systems and policy. And we do this through the house-shaped structure in the middle, where we have been running education programs. We are also promoting think tank and thought leadership and policy innovation. We're a small center, so we have a very thin level of advisory work, but this is the area where we work very closely with the Asian Development Bank, and we are looking at expanding that going forward in terms of the advisory opportunities. Next, please. Just before the pandemic, we did a review of key focus areas, and you will see this in the middle of the slide, that these were areas that were very important. So patient engagement, digital health, vaccines, we are thinking of innovative vaccines. We had been engaging with CEPI just before COVID-19 struck to talk about the Nipah virus vaccine. Then, of course, COVID came, and there's a lot of emphasis on that. And as we have come out of the pandemic, and very much linked to, I think, the VOLARE initiative, it is very important to look at innovative vaccines going forward. But that's also linked to the next point of innovative therapies. There are also advanced therapies coming into our health systems, very expensive, but with the opportunity to really deal with diseases, especially in areas like oncology or cancer. And clinical trials on the extreme right, we're talking of innovative clinical trials, not just necessarily the traditional type, but again, how do you use real-world data, real-world evidence? Next slide, please. This is our current advisory board. I will not mention the names, but as you can see, it's chaired by Dr. Margaret Hamburg, the former FDA commissioner, and we have representatives of existing and former heads of regulatory agencies around the world, and also from various multinational companies as well. Next slide. Now, this slide is important because for any capacity building system to work, and you're seeing this, I believe, also in Indonesia in your system, you need a very strong network of collaborators and partners. And so even in our capacity building work in the center, all these organizations with their logos represented here are partners in various ways. They either provide capacity building experts for our education programs, they provide funding for specific programs, but what is important is that we're working nationally, regionally, and internationally, because we need to get all the thought processes in as we're looking to advance our systems. Next slide. And these are some of the strategic international and regional partnerships, which I will not mention, apart from highlighting the ADB partnership, and also specifically, as I mentioned earlier, also working very closely with Badan POM to sign a memorandum of understanding, even though we've had many years of interaction. Next slide. Now, just looking at the Singapore example of health regulation, I've mentioned this before, that you have these three points of the triangle. At the center of it all, we want to protect patients, but there are various types of regulation. But we've seen this expansion. Can you click again to the next one? And you see that there is a converging of the services and products arms. Of course, the health professionals regulation is important, as Pak Roy was mentioning, and Pak Budi also mentioned this earlier, but it's a very complicated area. So just looking at health services and health products is already a big thing, but we are seeing this more and more as we move forward. Next slide. And so the scope of the center has also expanded to new projects, which you can see. In addition to ADB, we're also working with our Ministry of Health to look at health services regulation, and with an organization called Enterprise Singapore, where we're looking now at biomedical and health standards as well. Next, please. And so as we look at this expanding scope of the center, it does reflect what we also need to be aware of as you look at the overlap of health products, health services, and even global health policy issues. And you see 5 areas in the middle which are being affected by this converging. Artificial intelligence and digital health, advanced therapies, precision medicine, patient engagement, and also very interestingly, we are seeing issues affecting disease prevention and healthy aging. And this is just based on our observations, but we encourage people to think more through this as we go forward. And we have just put on our website a few days ago our perspective piece linked to our 10th anniversary, which describes this in much greater detail. Next slide. Next, please. Now, to address the needs of regulatory professionals, this is just the background that we have provided training. We're looking at current issues in regulatory science, and we cover a wide scope of topics. Next. And what we've done is we've taken the approach that we've used for graduate medical students in our school and adapted it for adult education. What is important is the engagement with experts from around the world in the middle part, a global network, and on the right, although there are regulatory training programs we've seen in North America and Europe, I think what is important is that we are focused very much on our region here. So there does need to be an understanding of the national needs and the cultural needs as well when we talk of regulation, even though you're using international standards. Next. So we began with a graduate certificate program that covers 11 modules, which covers the life cycle of products. We started with a focus on pharmaceuticals, and we've extended it to medical devices. Next slide. But as we are reviewing this now at our 10th anniversary, we are going to split into two graduate certificates, one specifically for pharmaceutical regulation, a second one specifically on medical technology regulation. And these are stackable modules where participants who are working adults come together for 5 days at a time. And this can eventually, we're looking into stacking this into various master's options as well. Next slide. And in the medical device space, diagnostics development, we work with our Agency for Science, Technology and Research, where we have shorter executive certificates looking at diagnostics development issues. Next slide. So this is just an overview. Over the last few years, we have trained over 2,000 participants have come to our courses. These are not unique because they attend more than one course. But we've drawn on nearly 200 global expert faculty, and we've engaged with more than 70 organizations. Next slide. And these are all the various organizations that have sent participants to our programs over the last few years, coming from industry, from national regulatory authorities, from government and academia. Next slide. Next. Now, to promote thought leadership, we also need to also look at things beyond just, as I said, what is being done. So we look at trends, and we're trying to also push the thinking on this, so that the way that we are regulating should not be the way we regulated yesterday or 10 years ago. We must be regulating for the future. And this applies to whether we're thinking of health products regulation, health services regulation, or across health systems. Next slide. And we, of course, go to roundtables, conferences, and all these things that you see on the screen, which are regulation of digital health, and of course artificial intelligence and generative AI is a very big area where the regulations are not clear. But we are encouraging that people to think of AI. There's a lot of work going on internationally now of how to regulate AI, but we want to encourage thinking at how to regulate AI in the context of health. Because if we do not have clear frameworks, there is lack of trust, there is lack of governance, and we're not able to fully utilize the full opportunities presented here when we think of regulation. Next slide. And my last section is just talking about development. And this is important, I believe, even as we think of vaccine manufacturing development, we do have to look at the next generation of regulatory leaders as well, because I applaud Indonesia for the very visionary change in the health regulatory framework. And now I think there needs to be a capacity building to be able to deliver on what the laws and the new framework requires. Next. So we, in honor of our first chairman, the late Sir Alistair Breckenridge, we had 3 lectures during the pandemic by the speakers you see on the screen, where they covered issues related to the regulation of COVID-19. So we started with Sir Jeremy Farrar when he was still at the Wellcome Trust. He's now with WHO. Penny Heaton, formerly from the Gates Foundation. And then Dr. Richard Hatchett, who's health ministry officials, obviously within countries, need to work closely together. But how much more important it also is, as we've seen again during the pandemic, that health officials across regions are able to know one another and work collaboratively to address major regulatory issues in systems. Next slide. And so this is the perspective piece I mentioned, and I would just encourage you, if you have time to read it, we can provide you the link, where we talk about regulating the future of health. covering those 5 areas I mentioned earlier. I think this is my last slide. Next, please. And well, this is just a reminder of the conference that we're having later in October. And Dr. Murray Lumpkin from the Gates Foundation is the Scientific Conference Committee Chair, and the Alistair Breckenridge Lecturer this year will be Dr. Mark McClellan. I think with that, I'm going to pass the time over to my colleague, who will now very specifically zoom in on the Asian Development Bank vaccine project. So may I invite my colleague Wei Chuan to come up. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Lim, for your presentation. You are pleased for delivering your next presentation. Assistant Professor Tan, you are pleased.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you, Ministry of Health. Thank you, the officials from the government of Indonesia. Dr. Patrick, for taking time to have this dialogue. Can I have the slide, please? Next slide, please. Let me start off with the introduction again. I think throughout the whole morning, we have heard about this ADB vaccine regulation project. So what is it exactly? I think if you look at 2 main streams of the work, one is to look at sustainable vaccine access, focusing on manufacturing. But as what Mr. Budi has rightfully pointed out, it cannot just be manufacturing. Manufacturing don't exist in isolation. There's also R&D, there's also licensure, there's also post-market variation. So our project will also look at the whole chain of vaccine cycle. But very unfortunately, we do not have the scope to go beyond distribution and into the arm and cold chain supply. Hopefully, we will have more opportunities to do those areas as well. The other area is that we recognize that you cannot just look at the product itself, the science, the manufacturing, the R&D. What is also very important is the underlying regulatory of the approval process. It must go hand in hand. So ultimately, this will actually lay the foundation of building up sustainable vaccine access, also actually providing a huge manufacturing ecosystem. But understanding that not all countries can eventually be a vaccine producer at the highest level of mRNA. So those are some of the considerations that we take as well. So beyond just looking at vaccine regulatory factors, this project will also has a repercussion effect in terms of the general regulatory system strengthening. And that's what we hope to achieve. Next slide, please. So what we designed the project is, the first and foremost, is to have a very rich discussion, not just among regulators and not just among manufacturers. The first thing we did was to host an ADB core vaccine seminar, of which we have the pleasure of having Badan POM participation, Ibu Rizka as well, both as speakers and participants. In that meeting, we assembled over 140 participants from different levels. From the highest ministerial level, which is the Minister of Bangladesh, we have the Secretary of India, which also covers animal and herbivory, looking into One Health and animal vaccine, and government officials from different countries from a very wide geographical region with very different interests, strategic areas, but one commonality is everyone is very interested in looking at vaccines. And the scope we cover starts from the policy, the science, the regulations, and the manufacturing. Next, please. And the output of this discussion is policy brief that will be helpful for other developing member countries of Asian Development Bank, so that there's more discussion and more dialogues in terms of sustainable vaccine access, in terms of vaccine manufacturing, focusing on low resource setting. So there can be a dialogue, because I think a lot of times after pandemic, one of the key driver is that we must have vaccine resilience. But there's always a discussion. Is vaccine resilience means local production or regional production? So in that seminar, there was a very interactive session where the honest opinions was being viewed. Next, please. And you can see this is a very small group. It's a very small lecture, similar to a lecture theatre, almost similar to this group now. So I think it is really quite wonderful opportunity for people to take time, like in this occasion itself, to have an honest exchange, to look at a strategic roadmap ahead as well. The policy briefs will be targeted to be ready, and we'll be very happy to share and also hear your opinion about what was the discussion as well. Next, please. And so more about the landscape analysis. So the landscape analysis aim to look at the challenges and opportunities of the different countries in terms of vaccine manufacturing and regulatory system strengthening. And the purpose is, as regulators, I'm a previous regulator with the Health Sciences Authority, as well as an educator right now, I think it's also very important to do this at this point after COVID, because self-reflection is where you grow. You actually look back and see what are the points, what are the good opportunities that was missed, what are the challenges, the enablers, and while you actually hope to move forward. The 5 countries we selected were selected carefully because they have different maturity level. Bangladesh is currently unclassified. It will be Bangladesh is actually going through WHO Global Benchmarking 2 assessment this year. And then you have India, Indonesia, and Korea, which is a vaccine powerhouse. At the same time, very strong regulatory system. So India and Indonesia is maturity level 3, which is well-functioning. Korea is maturity level 4, actually a WLA right now. But this, I would say, systematic classification of maturity level. The difference is between a well-functioning and advanced, but really it is accreditation exercise, more so for the system to look inwards in terms of quality management system. Singapore, in terms of manufacturing, is still very young, from a 0 manufacturing plant to 5 manufacturing plant. But in terms of regulatory system strengthening, it has been developing quite a fair bit over the years. So looking across different geographical, different vaccine capability, and different regulatory system strengthening, we hope to pull out some of the common themes that's not just relevant for these 5 countries, but relevant for other vaccine manufacturers, different regulators at the same time. Next, please. And specifically, we are interested in the 2 different countries, Indonesia and Bangladesh. And this morning, we have actually learned quite a fair bit from the presentations that Indonesia have a very strategic roadmap. But we hope we can continue this discussion because regulatory science is dynamic, vaccine science is dynamic. So we hope to work and continue this collaboration and discussion further. Next, please. And the themes that we are exploring is we are speaking to 3 major stakeholders, which is the policy makers, the regulators, as well as the vaccine developer and manufacturers, asking them what is your perspective of regulations. We ask regulators, they have their own worldview of themselves. But when you talk to vaccine developers and manufacturers, they have a different concept and different opinion and advice as well, and policies at the same time. Policymakers will say, why isn't the vaccine approved yesterday? So by trying to distill the key points, we hope that this report will actually be very useful and very practical. The other points we're looking is in terms of leadership, both during pandemic time as well as peace time. What do you do in terms of strategic planning? As we have learned from Bio Farma Indonesian experience, a vaccine ecosystem is not built overnight. You cannot expect to achieve the highest level of vaccine development and regulatory system strengthening in just 1 year's time. And these are some of the lessons that we need to share with the other countries as well. In terms of regulatory capacity building as well, when we look at Singapore achieving maturity level 4 and WLA, but the years before where we actually go through ISO accreditation, looking at doing SOPs, this takes time as well. These are the things that we need to also understand from other regulators. What are their approaches as well? And from our interviews so far, we've also learned that different countries adopt different strategies in terms of regulatory system strengthening. Some through education, some through stakeholder engagement, some through digitalization. And looking at the individual product life cycle from R&D, licensure, manufacturing, that's where we can also distill some of the key things. Some are simple, quick fix that perhaps regulators and policymakers could consider, but some are really longer term in terms of reliance and harmonization. So the roadmap will be formalized, And importantly, we also need to incorporate a global and regional perspective, because we are hearing also a lot in terms of efficiency. If everyone has different requirements and divergent and fragmented system, it's also very inefficient in terms of the industry and in terms of science. Next, please. I will not go deeper in the research methodology. As I mentioned, I'm first and foremost a pharmacist and regulator, and then after that a researcher. But ultimately, we also want to make sure that the views that we presented, the advice we presented, is not biased by hearing the loudest voice. So briefly, we will have a research grand round that's mainly attended by researchers, and we will share more in terms of the methodology of scoping review and the way of the semi-structured questionnaire that we conducted. Next. And lastly, to end it all, as I mentioned right from the start, regulators do not work in isolation. So we are also going out to the public to actually emphasize that regulations cannot roll back during peacetime. You cannot go through the same cycle of neglect and panic. And lastly, I would like to do a publicity blurb, which I think is a very useful resource. Professor Lim and myself have spent the last 1 to 2 years working on this book together with Professor Dale Fisher. He has already made it public to say that there will be free access. We contributed to one chapter, and I can assure you there's a lot of quality, a lot of input going into one chapter. I'm also very interested to reading the other chapters, focusing in terms of infectious disease emergency, outbreak preparedness, and response. With that, I thank you very much for your attention. I hope we can continue this discussion later. Thank you.
Thank you. Please give a round of applause for Assistant Professor Tan for your presentation regarding the ADB vaccine regulation project. And distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, before we continue for our next agenda, there will be 2 different meetings in separate room. So we would like to invite the DUKE-NUS, and then for the representative of Indonesia FDA, and also the representative of Ministry of Health to continue for the high-level meetings at the Bandung room. Once again, before we continue for our next panel session, we would like to invite the DUKE-NUS, representative of Indonesia FDA, the representative of Ministry of Health of Republic of Indonesia to continue for the high-level meetings that's located at the Bandung rooms. You are pleased for the DUKE-NUS, and then the representative of Indonesian FDA, and then the representative of Ministry of Health to continue for the high-level meetings at the Bandung rooms. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, once again we would like to deliver that Indonesia Vaccine Manufacturing Stakeholders Meeting with DUKE-NUS aim to enhance the collaboration and action to strengthen Indonesia vaccine manufacturing and regulatory capacity. Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, to continue our agenda today, we will have an entry panel sessions. And to guide this session, I respectfully invite kindly to the stage our moderator today. Please welcome our moderator, Dr. Apotheker M. Rahman Rustan, SSE MBA. You please to come to the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dr. Rahman Rustan. Please give a round of applause.
Thank you for the introduction. So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, allow me to express our gratitude, especially to the Minister of Health, Bapak Budi Gunadi Sadikin, and also Ibu Rizka, the Deputy Minister, the Pharmaceutical and Medical Devices, and the Deputy Badan POM, Professor John Lim, Dr. Patrick, and also the DUKE-NUS and ADB colleague. Highly appreciate to the committee, Pak Roy Himawan, and the members of Direktorat Ketahanan Kefarmasian dan Alat Kesehatan Ministry of Health. So, my name is Rahman Rustan. I'm a lecturer and also academician. In this session, we will have the discussion. Plus, allow me to highlight some points that the economists in 2021, the 5 pillars of main components of ecosystems mentioned about the R&D, manufacturing, procurement, pricing, and financing, distribution, logistic, and supply chain, and user acceptance and uptake. So without further ado, in this session, we will have the discussion with the experts and also the very competent person in R&D aspects. Please allow me to invite Bapak Budiman Bella. Welcome, Pak Budiman Bella. Pak Budiman Bella dari Departemen Mikrobiologi, Pusat Riset Virologi, Kanker, and Patobiologi, Fakultas Kedokteran Universitas Indonesia. Please, Pak. And the second speaker about the manufacturing aspect, Bapak Indra Lamora. Please welcome Pak Indra. Pak Indra from Etana. Another pillar about the procurement, pricing, and financing dari tim kerja katalog elektronikal sektoral. Please, Pak Ridwan atau yang mewakili. Okay, another speaker from the pillar of distribution, logistic, and supply chain, Ibu Iin Susanti. Ibu Iin Susanti, please welcome. This is my colleague from PT Bio Farma. She's in charge in production and supply chain director. And another pillar talking about user acceptance and uptake. Please welcome Ibu Dr. Endang Budi Hasuti. Okay, she will join short. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have welcome Pak Ridwan. Yeah. So, in this session, they will deliver about the challenging and also the opportunity of the 5 pillars. So, we invite Pak Budiman Bella, we're talking about the R&D challenges. Please, Pak. So we have 10 minutes for each, and please accept my apology if I interrupt in in the 1 or 2 minutes left, please. Thank you.
Thank you. So first of all, I would like to thank the organizing committee for the invitation to speak in this very important forum. So the topic given to me is about challenges in vaccine research and development. Next slide, please. So I actually take most of my presentation from this really comprehensive publication regarding vaccinology. Challenges. The link is as mentioned there. So we all know that infectious diseases has caused tremendous trouble, and the example is with COVID-19. We know that it has caused us illness, human suffering, economic costs, medical complications, hospitalization, disability, and death. And of course, actually, we do have vaccines, and with the availability of vaccine, we can have vaccine preventable diseases actually can be prevented by these vaccines. However, still at the moment we see that the cost of vaccine preventable diseases is still very high. Now with the challenges of infectious diseases, we actually have a lot of human pathogens, more than 1,400 known species, but at the same time, you only have a very low number of vaccines that is currently available that we can use to prevent these diseases or these human pathogens to cause us illness. Next slide, please. Then we have this problem that with, although we know that we can prevent we can prevent diseases from developing using vaccine, yet creation of new vaccine is very slow. It is systematic, and of course it can become complicated, and there is a need of a lot of collaborations, development of ecosystem that we have just heard from previous speakers, and also it is expensive and laborious. Then because of that, of course, we need coordination between shareholders. Now you see that there are a lot of shareholders here. They need to collaborate between them. But we know that there is a challenge, even in Indonesia, that even among these people in the same field, we still have, of course, like challenges on how we can make them to collaborate with each other. Next slide, please. Now, these are the list of challenges in vaccine development. I probably will just mention several of them related to vaccine research. Now, we see here that there is a high cost for vaccine development, also more stringent safety requirements, and also the need to maintain cold chain for vaccines, which I will later on address as well, in that researchers sometimes do not anticipate that such problem can occur, so that they don't include that in their research plan or strategy. And also there is increasing requirements for single dose efficacy, meaning that we need to understand more about vaccine immunology, and product development time takes a lot of years. However, we have learned from the COVID vaccine development that actually certain strategies can be developed so that we can make it faster. Also, current pathogens require more complicated vaccines and low efficacy of some licensed vaccines. We also learned about that. Mr. Budi has mentioned about how in the early phase of vaccine administration in Indonesia, we just have to start using vaccine with a lower efficacy. Yet that itself actually seems to be saving a lot of lives, as we have seen in the case of Delta. We have got information on how people who have been vaccinated, the death is lower. Now, also the aging world population that respond poorly to most vaccines, and this is an area that we probably haven't learned or established a lot in Indonesia, although some of our researchers are starting to learn or starting to research on immunosenescence. And also adjuvant is also still a problem because it's very limited, and also the health problem in developing world that compromise immune response due to poor nutrition, for example, and co-infection with other diseases such as HIV and tuberculosis. Also, this is what I mentioned before, that there's an incomplete or inadequate understanding of biology, pathogenesis, and or immunology of emerging pathogens, and the inability to properly attenuate pathogens or risk of reversions to wild-type organisms. We have seen this in the case of polio, attenuated poliovirus. We know that in Indonesia we had outbreaks of vaccine-derived poliovirus. Also, humoral immune responses do not always correlate with protection, so we need to, of course, understand more about this, how vaccine can actually provide protection in different microorganisms, virus, viral infection, bacterial infections. Of course, you will have different immune responses that will be more significant in providing protection. In the case of COVID-19 virus, we learned that there are individuals who actually can overcome the infection, although there is no humoral immune response, or the individuals lack the ability to produce antibody. So that raised up the understanding that we need to explore more about how to harness the other immune responses. Also, there are inappropriate or harmful immune response or enhanced disease upon reinfection, such as dengue, and also inadequate durability of immune response. And of course, this is an area that needs to be explored more so that we can have a vaccine that are, or vaccines that are more long-lasting. Next slide, please. Slide. Next slide. Okay, so we have the barriers to vaccine development, understanding how immunity develops, host variability, pathogen variability, vaccine safety, and also environmental and geographic factors. Next slide. And if you, next slide. Okay, so we see here that there are solutions. There are genomic-based solutions to vaccine development barriers, such as system biology study, identify non-humoral correlates of protection, etc., including host variations. There are 8 sex population-based vaccine formulations, diagnostic tests to predict vaccine response. Now, these are areas that we have to communicate to researchers that they can actually try to channel their scientific curiosity to providing solutions in these areas. Next slide. I suppose I will not, of course, like the pathogen variability and vaccine safety and environmental and geographic factors. If we explore more, we can actually find that there are solutions that we can use to overcome, or at least in facing this or providing the solutions to these barriers. Next slide. Okay, now this is specific conditions for Indonesia. So we have problems in retention of competent human resources in research institutions. This is certainly something that is that we face at the University of Indonesia. Also, lack of implementation of good laboratory practice in many laboratories, lack of understanding on areas of research that need to be addressed in order to obtain vaccine candidates that are acceptable to the vaccine industry. Sometimes researchers do not understand or anticipate that they need to address these issues such as yield, safety, cost, freedom to operate, stability, etc. And also, there is a minimal data of Indonesian host immune responses and genetics, lack of research collaborations that support advancement in vaccine R&D, difficulties in procurement of reagents and consumables that probably will be addressed by the next speaker. Next slide. We have ecosystem of vaccine R&D has not been well established in many research institutions, virus management, research facility management, data management, IP management, and system for technology transfer, etc. Now, this is my last slide. Next slide, please. Okay, so my recommendation is that a system that supports training, networking, development of regulations, and data sharing for vaccine research and development needs to be established and well designed. Actually, in other words, I'm saying I'm supporting the VOLARE initiative, because this is what what is going to be conducted in the VOLARE initiative. Also, scientific collaborations among scientists in the area of vaccinology, but also with scientists from other fields that is related to vaccinology needs to be fostered and encouraged. And with that, I close the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Budi Manbela, for your on-time presentation. Now for the next pillar is the manufacturing. Please, Bapak Indra Lamura, you have 10 minutes for presentation.
Please. 10 minutes. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Yang terhormat Bapak Ibu dari Kementerian Kesehatan, Bapak Ibu dari BPOM, ladies and gentlemen, Bapak Ibu dari researcher, thank you very much for staying with us here. The first session by Dr. Budi Manbela already presented about the research and development challenges. Let me take a big part about the manufacturing challenges in vaccine development ecosystem in Indonesia. Next slide, please. Allow me to start. What is the pandemic and post-pandemic conditions? So during the pandemic, of course, the global is shocked because the global supply chains is focused on, like what the Pak Budi mentioned before, focus on the high of the economic countries. So the country like us, Indonesian, Bangladesh, Southeast Asia, of course, we have the limited resources and limited medicines. So learning from the COVID, what we are doing is about how to spotlight Indonesian defendants, Indonesian resiliency in both vaccine and biologicals, as well as the COVID drugs. And the current crisis will be signal to the new era of the policy. I would like to appreciate to this initiative. The VOLARE initiative will be help us about the pandemic preparedness, how to accelerate in the product development, manufacturing and distribution of the vaccine in national level as well as in the region level. Next slide, please. So current opportunity as well as the challenges Indonesia, as Pak Jokowi mentioned, we need to have the resiliency here in the local. This is a must. How to get that? We have opportunity and we have also the challenge. The opportunity is we have 278 million populations is one of the key, and the growth rate, the future expenditure is expected 7 to 10%. So we have the funding, we have the people, and we have the product. And of course, we have the challenge because vaccine industry is required high technology, high investment. Of course, as Dr. Budiman mentioned, is also require high human resources capability that need high knowledge as high expertise. And by BPOM here, of course, is also fully regulated. So to cover the whole things, we need the global collaboration is as essential part to the drug substance as well as drugs product vaccine development we get from the growing countries, from the north part of the globe, from the western part of the globe, as well as China's today, to share with us about the technology as about the capabilities. Next slide, please. So this is how to fulfillment the market needs. There are some way with 3 methods to do. First is novelty. Second is reverse engineering. The third will be the joint venture as well as the joint technology transfer. So let's focus on this part to occupy the downstream and the upstream process. Next slide, please. So this is the technology transfer overview. If before we're talking about the triple helix, I would like to say this will be like more than that. So it will be academia here, the government here, the academic and business will follow. Then people will submit to us about the approval. Then we can launch the product in the market. So all of these need to be lead the optimization through the R&D, to the productions, and then to the regulatory before we promote the product in the market. Next slide, please. So the overall overview about the technology transfer from the research study to conduct, then we will have needs the analytical development, including both raw material, drug substance, drug product, and everything. Then specifically in my part right now, it will be the process development from the upstream, downstream, process liability, how to scaling up, and then commercial scale of the product. Then packaging development will be the last part of the production plan. Next slide, please. So that's why I would like to appreciate to Directorate Ketahanan that this is the policy how to promote the resilience of pharmaceuticals as well as the medical devices industry, specifically for the vaccines. So we have intervention and incentive how to diversify of these pharmaceuticals, simplify the permissions both with BPOM as well, and facilitate us the testing and calibration of the performance, the chemical devices as well as the laboratory testing. Next slide, please. By all this support, Etana come with mRNA production license. Then we are very proud that by 2022, we are initiate the mRNA technology transfer, how to get this platform in this region. Next slide, please. This is the vaccine players 2021, and for the long history, of course, this is our big brother, Bio Farma, Pak Rahman, Ibu Iin. And the new vaccine players is Biotis and Etana, and GBio will come later this year or next year. So by Etana, we are very proud to say that we already succeed in the development of the first mRNA in Indonesia. We also already obtained halal. Now we are in the middle of process to obtain the marketing authorization for the next generation of the mRNA SARS-CoV-2. And currently also we are developing the 13 valent pneumococcal polysaccharide conjugate vaccines because we understand the top killer infectious disease in children in Indonesia is pneumonia. Next slide, please. Okay. So my part is about the challenge. I will take the first challenge is about, let me take one example is mRNA because we are doing from A to Z. So I believe with this challenge, mRNA challenge, specific challenge, viral vector challenge is remain the same. So by this pick of the mRNA, the first challenge is how to design the mRNA vaccines. We have the expert here. I think we can solve this problem. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, this is mRNA design productions for how to spike and then to the plasmid construction and productions. I do believe Indonesia is the right pathway to do this from the research part into the realization part. Next slide, please. So the second challenge about the technology itself, who will be shared with us? Is US will be shared with us, or the western part of the globe will share with us? The current mRNA we taken from China, because we understand also China technology today already proved that they can have the high-tech technology of the platform, including mRNA. Next slide, please. The third challenge is about the timeline. By doing mRNA, we can do local rapid development. By 30 days, we already come out with the first design of the mRNA to become the first phase 1 of the clinical trials. Next slide, please. The fourth challenge is about the halal. To solve this, we have very strong halal authority in Indonesia, and what we need to do actually is to come out with the traceability materials, how to do and pick up the right materials and then become of the drug product of the halal. This is very important for Indonesia. I will have the next 3 slides, please. And the 5 challenge about the clinical trials and product approval support by BPOM, I think we can solve this. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the commercial scale about the material related because so many material and quality testing are not available here in Indonesia. During the pandemic, we are shortage, but now we are able to connect with any other suppliers from the globe. Then during the time, we are also taking a very fully dedicated how to do it, to deal with this situation. Next slide, please. This is my last slide. Okay, the 7, 8, and the last slide will be if we are talking about the mRNA context, the stroke bioinformatic analysis, I'm happy to hear that Pak Budi already made this initiative to be launched this year. This is how to support the mRNA development here in Indonesia. The second, as also Dr. Budi mentioned about the preclinical laboratory study with a strong comprehensive and data collecting analysis need to be done here. And the last one is about the human resource itself. Etana, it take a big part how to spending to grow the people for in terms of the vaccine as well as the biopharmaceutical drug in this region. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Terima kasih. Thank you, Pak Indra. So the next presentation will be the procurement, pricing, and financing. I think since the most of the audience is Indonesian, so I permission to the committee to allow the speaker to mix Indonesia and English, campur bahasa Indonesia, bahasa Inggris in your convenience. Kami persilahkan Pak Ridwan atau yang mewakili dari Biro Pengadaan Barang dan Jasa Kementerian Kesehatan.
Ya, terima kasih Pak Moderator. Saya hormati para narasumber, Bapak Ibu sekalian. Baik, kami akan menyampaikan terkait tantangan pengadaan. Saat ini untuk proses pengadaan dilaksanakan di Biro Pengadaan Barang Jasa untuk di Kementerian Kesehatan. Nantinya dalam proses pengadaan barang dan jasa ini, khususnya untuk vaksin, ada beberapa metode yang akan dilaksanakan pada proses pengadaan barang jasa, yaitu melalui e-processing di katalog elektronik, maupun melalui tender. Nah, terhadap produk-produk vaksin yang sudah tayang di katalog ini kita akan laksanakan dengan proses e-processing, yaitu pembelian secara elektronik. Nah, dalam terhadap pembelian atau proses pengadaan vaksin ini dilakukan terhadap produk-produk vaksin yang telah tayang di katalog elektronik, ini kita lakukan processing. Namun dalam proses ini kita harus di Biro Pengadaan Jasa ini menerima usulan dalam proses pengadaan ini. Ada beberapa tantangan yang harus perlu diperhatikan di sini, yaitu terhadap jumlah kebutuhan yang diusulkan ini masih belum tepat karena pengadaan vaksin mempertimbangkan stok di daerah, sehingga diperlukan perhitungan kembali alokasi kebutuhan dan distribusi vaksin ketika proses pengadaan akan dimulai. Nah, ini Bapak Ibu, jadi adanya ketidaktepatan dalam proses usulan untuk alokasi jumlah vaksin yang dilakukan proses pengadaan. Nah, ini mengakibatkan nantinya dalam akhir proses pengadaan untuk alokasi kebutuhan distribusi ini ditolak di daerah. Ini kan mengakibatkan terjadinya vaksin atau stok di daerah ini ternyata masih ada, sehingga tidak terjadinya ada penolakan dari daerah dalam proses pengadaan vaksin ini. Yang ketiga yaitu spesifikasi Bapak Ibu. Jadi spesifikasi ini terkadang ini yang diusulkan tidak sesuai dengan spesifikasi vaksin yang ada di pelaku usaha atau di penyedia, sehingga ini perlu disampaikan kembali untuk dikaji ulang kembali spesifikasi ini ke user atau ke program untuk dilakukan pengkajian terhadap spesifikasi yang betul-betul memang sesuai dengan kebutuhan. Jadi ini nanti akan disampaikan lagi spesifikasi tersebut ke Biro Pengadaan Barang Jasa untuk dilakukan proses tindak lanjut selanjutnya dalam proses pengadaan. Ya, next. Bapak Ibu, terhadap penggunaan produk dalam negeri sendiri Bapak Ibu, jadi ada beberapa vaksin yang memang merupakan produk impor, misalnya vaksin rotavirus yang baru saja kami proses, sehingga ini kurang mendukung terhadap program peningkatan penggunaan produk dalam negeri. Nah, ini Bapak Ibu terhadap prioritas penggunaan produk dalam negeri yang saat ini adanya kebijakan-kebijakan dari pemerintah yang prioritaskan produk dalam negeri untuk pengadaan barang dan jasa. Dan yang terakhir terhadap kesulitan dalam kesepakatan harga negosiasi, jadi Bapak Ibu dalam proses penayangan saat ini memang ada proses bisnis yang sangat mudah sekali dilakukan oleh para pelaku usaha untuk menayangan produknya. Jadi di awal dulu dengan kebijakan yang lama itu dilakukan namanya verifikasi terhadap dokumen administrasi, mungkin teknis maupun terhadap dokumen harga. Namun hal ini dalam proses penayangan, setiap penayangan produk saat ini bisa langsung daftar dan tayang. Tinggal mengikuti apa yang kita persyaratkan di pengumuman penayangan. Nah, ini sehingga dalam prosesnya, dalam penayangan harganya ini, para pelaku usaha ini secara mandiri melakukan penayangan harga. Nah, ini yang sangat menyulitkan dalam PPK dan pejabat pengadaan melakukan negosiasi. Karena dalam hal ini, negosiasi ini yang diperlukan oleh para proses pengadaan ini adalah referensi harga. Referensi harga ini adalah dari struktur harga yang disampaikan di lampiran produk di katalog elektronik untuk proses purchasing. Nah, ini yang terkadang sangat sulit sekali dalam menyepakati negosiasi ini. Untuk referensi harga ini sangat sulit didapatkan. Contohnya struktur harga dan juga PIB, dokumen pendukung harga. Nah, ini yang perlu kita sama-sama karena di pengumuman persyaratan kami sudah mempersyaratkan terhadap dokumen-dokumen pendukung yang nantinya akan dijadikan sebagai referensi harga untuk bernegosiasi pada proses purchasing. Selanjutnya adalah kurangnya transparansi informasi justifikasi kenaikan harga Bapak Ibu yang disampaikan industri farmasi, misal pada komponen factory overhead. Ini yang perlu diperhatikan. Memang kami sangat kesulitan dalam hal ini untuk mendapatkan kedua dokumen-dokumen ini dalam kesepakatan harga negosiasi. Demikian mungkin yang dapat kami sampaikan. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih, aplaus untuk Pak Ridwan. Terima kasih Pak Ridwan atas sharing, challenging on procurement, pricing, and finance. So the next presentation about the distribution, logistic, and supply chain will be delivered by Bu Iin Susanti. Time is yours, Bu Iin.
Thank you, Pak Rahman. So distinguished guests from MOH, from Badan POM, from KOR, from ADB and other ladies and gentlemen. So good morning. So next slide, please. I would like to start with the vaccine ecosystem involve many stakeholders. So in the inner circle, this is from the vaccine manufacturer that already elaborate more by Pak Indra just now. And then apart from the manufacturer, we also have the regulator, the medical professional, the patient itself, and the communities, and then the organization, the vendor, and the government. This all have to go together if we have to make the vaccination in Indonesia to become successful. And distribution is part of the manufacturer task to distribute all the product from the manufacturer to the end user. Next, if we learn from the last pandemic, we all understand that one obstacle that we face is with regard to the supply chain. We face a scarcity of raw materials and goods. For example, like a disposable bag. If we, during the pandemic, ask for the disposable bag, perhaps the stock is available, but the transport is not possible. And also, we also identify that the COVID vaccine we have several vaccine with several kind of storage temperature. This makes the distribution and the supply chain become more and more complicated. For example, with the Pfizer, we have to keep the vaccine in -70. This never have happened before. We have a vaccine with the storage temperature -70 or below. Therefore, at that time, that is a big issue because the vaccine is there, but how can we distribute the vaccine under the -70? So this is several challenges that we faced during the pandemic. So this morning we also have the launching of the VOLARE. So I hope also that the research is not only focusing to how to develop the new vaccines,
but how we can develop also or improving the distribution. In this regard, perhaps I wish that we have all the vaccine can be started at the room temperature. So this will make the distribution easier and faster, and also in the field it become more easier for the patient to use the vaccine. Next. And then this is, I think this all the element here already mentioned before by Pak Budiman and also Pak Indra before. But again, I would like to highlight on the distribution part. So in this case, we need the robust cold chain management. And we also identify that the implementation of digital technology is a must in the aspect of I think my last slide, Pak. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Bu Iin. Please big applause to Bu Iin. I note that VOLARE is very promising, but not only for vaccine development, but we note that also the distribution, innovation, yeah, and supply chain system improvement, let's say like that. So the last presentation, we'll be talking about the user acceptance and uptake. Kami persilahkan dari Direktorat Pengelolaan Imunisasi untuk menyampaikan. Kami persilahkan.
Terima kasih Bapak Moderator, mohon izin para narasumber dan juga hadirin sekalian. Mewakili Ibu Direktur Pengelolaan Imunisasi yang hari ini banyak juga agenda lain yang cukup penting. Mohon izin di sini kami akan menyampaikan dalam bahasa Indonesia ya Pak ya, Bapak Ibu. Tantangan sebagai user acceptance dan uptake dalam ekosistem pengembangan vaksin. Next slide please. Ya ini adalah outline-nya, kita lanjut saja. Ya, jadi program imunisasi nasional Bapak Ibu mengacu kepada Immunization Agenda 2030 yang ditetapkan oleh global. Jadi ada beberapa tujuan yang perlu dicapai dalam program imunisasi ini. Yang pertama adalah untuk menurunkan angka kematian yang dapat dicegah dengan imunisasi pada seluruh kelompok usia. Jadi saat ini program imunisasi tidak hanya berfokus pada anak-anak ya, jadi untuk the whole life course gitu ya. Kemudian memastikan akses vaksin termasuk vaksin baru dan tidak ada yang tertinggal dari program imunisasi atau kita sering mengenalnya dengan no one left behind Bapak Ibu. Kemudian yang ketiga untuk memastikan kesehatan bagi semua orang melalui penguatan imunisasi dengan pelayanan kesehatan primer dalam rangka mencapai UHC dan juga program yang berkesinambungan. Lanjut. Untuk itu program imunisasi nasional juga sudah mengadaptasi dalam bentuk CMYP atau Comprehensive Multi-Year Plan yang saat ini sudah kami miliki dari tahun 2019 sampai 2024, di mana ada beberapa tujuan yang ingin dicapai oleh program imunisasi nasional sejalan dengan tujuan dari global dan regional. Yang pertama adalah terkait eradikasi polio global. Diharapkan pada tahun 2026 kita dapat mencapai eradikasi polio global dan tentunya kita tetap harus mempertahankan status bebas polio yang sudah tercapai pada tahun 2014. Namun memang tadi seperti disampaikan oleh pembicara sebelumnya, kita menghadapi beberapa challenge terkait adanya KLB polio yang berasal dari CVDVP. Kemudian target kedua adalah kita diharapkan dapat mencapai target eliminasi dan global untuk beberapa penyakit seperti campak rubella dan juga CRS. Kemudian kita juga harus mempertahankan status eliminasi tetanus pada ibu dan bayi. Juga harapannya dapat melakukan kontrol untuk penyakit difteri. Target selanjutnya adalah kita harus mencapai cakupan imunisasi di setiap wilayah, negara, dan komunitas. Jadi diharapkan cakupan imunisasi itu minimal 80% di seluruh kabupaten kota ya, khususnya untuk anak usia 0 sampai 11 bulan harus menerima imunisasi dasar lengkap, dan juga secara total minimal 95% anak usia 0 sampai 11 bulan harus menerima imunisasi dasar lengkap. Kemudian kita juga melakukan pengembangan dan introduksi vaksin-vaksin baru yang nanti akan kami jelaskan dalam slide selanjutnya. Dan juga tujuan akhirnya adalah untuk mencapai target MDGs untuk menurunkan angka kematian anak. Next slide. Nah, ini Bapak Ibu mungkin kami sedikit menceritakan terkait perjalanan program imunisasi nasional yang kita mulai di tahun 1956. Waktu itu adalah vaksin cacar yang kemudian sudah bisa dieradikasi dan juga sudah tidak dilaksanakan kembali. Kemudian semakin berkembang ya dalam program API sampai dengan tahun 2013 itu kita baru bisa mengintroduksi vaksin baru lagi. Waktu itu adalah vaksin pentavalen atau DPT-HB/HIB. Kemudian setelah itu memang progres untuk introduksi vaksin baru itu agak lambat ya. Kita lakukan introduksi secara bertahap mulai 2016 untuk vaksin HPV dan PCV, kemudian JE, kemudian juga baru kita bisa mengintroduksi secara nasional untuk vaksin rotavirus HPV dan PCV ini di tahun 2022 dan 2023. Lanjut. Nah, untuk itu kita juga sudah melakukan beberapa evaluasi terkait program imunisasi nasional, baik imunisasi rutin maupun untuk vaksin baru. Kita bekerja sama dengan beberapa center dan juga mitra untuk melakukan evaluasi terkait imunisasi rutin dan juga vaksin baru seperti IPV, PCV, JE. Dan juga kami melakukan FEM assessment secara rutin yang didukung oleh mitra UNICEF. Selanjutnya, ya, boleh lanjut. Nah, ini adalah hasil survei penerimaan imunisasi. Jadi secara rutin juga dilakukan survei oleh UNICEF ya. Ini adalah hasil yang didapatkan pada tahun 2023 kemarin pada kuartal kedua. Ada beberapa alasan utama kenapa anak-anak ini tidak diberikan imunisasi. Ternyata dari hasil survei yang terbaru ini paling banyak disebabkan karena takut disuntik lebih dari satu. Jadi dengan adanya introduksi vaksin-vaksin baru, beberapa introduksi vaksin baru ke dalam program imunisasi nasional, memang ada jadwal yang mengharuskan seorang bayi ini akan mendapatkan beberapa jenis vaksin dalam satu kali pemberian. Contohnya pada usia 2 bulan seorang anak ini harus mendapatkan imunisasi DPT, kemudian PCV, dan juga mendapatkan vaksin poliotetes dan juga rotavirus. Ya, ada 4 jenis vaksin yang diberikan, 2 yang ditetes dan juga 2 yang disuntik. Kemudian juga khusus untuk daerah DIY karena sebelumnya sudah menggunakan vaksin IPV, polio suntik, maka dalam satu kali pemberian dia bisa mendapatkan 3 jenis vaksin sekaligus. Jadi mungkin ini yang menyebabkan hasil survei yang terbaru menunjukkan bahwa alasan yang paling utama seorang anak tidak diberikan imunisasi karena takut disuntik terlalu banyak, gitu, Bapak Ibu. Selain itu juga karena memang masih ada beberapa alasan lain terkait takut efek simpang, kemudian jadwal imunisasi yang tidak pas gitu ya. Kemudian juga ada beberapa kekhawatiran yang lain terkait imunisasi ini. Selanjutnya, jadi secara garis besar kami mengevaluasi ada beberapa tantangan dalam program imunisasi. Yang pertama terkait vaksin hesitansi. Jadi itu tadi yang sudah ditampilkan oleh hasil survei sebelumnya. Kemudian juga masih berkembang beberapa isu negatif untuk imunisasi. Tentunya hoax juga masih banyak beredar di masyarakat. Kemudian juga kami sempat mengalami tantangan terkait kekosongan vaksin. Jadi tahun lalu sempat ada keterlambatan shipment untuk vaksin PCV, kemudian juga dalam beberapa tahun terakhir ini ada beberapa kejadian kekosongan vaksin baik itu IPV, kemudian PCV, juga kemarin vaksin rotavirus, JE, dan juga yang terakhir itu adalah kekosongan vaksin penta. Selanjutnya juga masih ada terkait isu kehalalan vaksin. Jadi memang sudah ada beberapa kelompok masyarakat yang menuntut ketersediaan vaksin halal, dan juga sudah kemudian ada tuntutan dari masyarakat ini maju ke Mahkamah Agung dan sudah diputuskan oleh MA bahwa pemerintah wajib menyediakan vaksin COVID yang halal. Dan juga adanya Undang-Undang nomor 33 tahun 2014 terkait jaminan produk halal. Kemudian juga ada tantangan terkait pemenuhan sarana penyimpanan vaksin atau cold chain. Jadi dengan banyaknya vaksin baru yang diintroduksi tentunya memberikan efek pada kapasitas cold chain yang tersedia. Jadi memang perlu ada penambahan dan juga mungkin secara bagaimana cara menjaga kualitasnya ini juga masih perlu dilatih lagi kepada teman-teman kita yang ada di daerah. Kemudian juga terkait komitmen lintas program dan lintas sektor. Jadi kita sudah berusaha untuk menggandeng semua lintas sektor yang terkait. Bahkan sudah ada SKB dari 4 menteri, namun belum bisa optimal diaplikasikan di lapangan. Dan juga komitmen Pemda dalam penyediaan anggaran operasional ini masih sangat bervariasi dan masih belum optimal. Selanjutnya, ya ini adalah slide yang terakhir. Jadi memang untuk bisa meningkatkan user acceptance dan juga uptake untuk vaksin ini diperlukan adanya ketersediaan vaksin untuk program imunisasi nasional yang tentunya sudah dijamin keamanannya baik secara PQ oleh WHO dan juga NIE dari Badan POM. Kita tetap harus ada surveillance keamanan vaksin yang kontinu dalam rangka meningkatkan kepercayaan dan demand masyarakat. Kemudian juga kesinambungan ketersediaan vaksin dan logistik imunisasi yang cukup serta adekuat, penyimpanan yang adekuat agar dapat meningkatkan akses pelayanan kepada masyarakat untuk mendapatkan cakupan yang tinggi dan merata. Kemudian juga perlu adanya inovasi produk-produk vaksin dalam rangka mendukung administrasi pemberian vaksin. Jadi mungkin tadi dengan banyaknya imunisasi yang diberikan, suntikan yang diberikan dalam satu waktu ini dapat ada inovasi baru yang bisa menggabungkan beberapa vaksin dalam satu produk gitu ya. Mungkin tadi kita masih menggunakan pentavalen, mungkin selanjutnya bisa dikembangkan lagi yang bentuk hexavalen dan seterusnya. Sehingga cukup dengan satu kali suntikan itu bisa sekaligus memberikan perlindungan yang optimal dari banyak penyakit. Dan juga tentunya kerjasama lintas sektor, lintas program dalam mendukung pelaksanaan program imunisasi nasional termasuk untuk introduksi vaksin-vaksin baru. Mungkin itu yang dapat kami sampaikan dalam kesempatan kali ini. Terima kasih banyak atas perhatiannya. Mohon maaf apabila hal yang kurang berkenan. Kami kembalikan kepada Pak Moderator. Terima kasih.
Ya, terima kasih luar biasa pemaparan dari 5 narasumber dan alhamdulillah semuanya tepat waktu. Terima kasih kepada kelima narasumber dan ini luar biasa Bapak Ibu sekalian. Dari The Economist yang ditulis tahun 2021 tadi disampaikan ada 5 pilar komponen utama ekosistem pengembangan vaksin. Yang disampaikan dari Direktorat Pengelolaan Imunisasi itu user acceptance and uptake. Ini sebetulnya informasi yang paling berharga yang kemudian nanti harus disiapkan oleh manufacturing, oleh R&D dan juga nanti didistribusikan. Jadi tadi sudah kita dengarkan sama-sama dari user acceptance and uptake, kemudian procurement, pricing dan financing. Pak Ridwan sudah menyampaikan beberapa challenging dan kemudian ke distribusi dari Bu Iin, manufacturing dari Pak Indra dan R&D dari Pak Budiman Bella. Kita punya waktu 10 menit untuk diskusi. Mari kita manfaatkan untuk saling bertanya, menanyakan apakah ada solusi yang lain yang bisa kita diskusikan sama-sama. So we invite all the audience and also from the DUKE-NUS and ADB College if you have any question. Bapak Ibu sekalian, jika ada pertanyaan kami persilahkan. Juga mungkin sambil menunggu dari Bapak Ibu sekalian, dari yang gabung dengan online, mohon izin saya mungkin sampaikan dulu pertanyaan. Ada pertanyaan yang masuk terkait dengan intellectual property dari sisi R&D dan kemudian nanti bagaimana bisa dioptimalkan ketika itu diproduksi. Mungkin nanti bisa dijawab oleh Pak Budiman Bella dan dari sisi produksi Pak Indra dan Bu Iin. Tapi silahkan Bapak Ibu sekalian jika ada pertanyaan mungkin bisa disiapkan. Pak Budiman mungkin ada yang bisa disampaikan, silakan.
Terima kasih Pak Rahman. Jadi IPR ini menurut saya pribadi dan rasanya waktu kami bertemu di Malaysia, di Singapura dengan teman-teman dari Thailand dan juga dari Malaysia, permasalahan IPR dan juga bagaimana melakukan valuation daripada IP itu juga adalah hal-hal yang mungkin masih menjadi PR kita di Indonesia begitu. Kita kemarin berlari kencang berusaha untuk memproduksi vaksin, tetapi bagaimana kita bisa membangkitkan gairah dari peneliti. Kalau menurut saya sih kemarin semua bergairah karena kondisi yang memang semendesak. Terima kasih Pak. Jadi tetapi PR itu tetap harus diselesaikan begitu. Dan kalau kita melihat teknologi transfer office di Indonesia itu juga memang perlu betul-betul diperkuat. Kita sempat bertemu dengan teman-teman dari IPB, ITB dan UGM, itu semua sepakat bahwa harus ada sistem yang membuat teknologi transfer office di semua institusi penelitian itu konsisten dan terus-menerus improve. Karena di universitas itu setiap 5 tahun terjadi pergantian orang-orang. Nah, bagaimana menjaga supaya ini tetap berjalan dengan baik. Saya rasa PR kita nanti di VOLARE juga harus mencakup juga permasalahan teknologi transfer dan juga intellectual property right, belum lagi permasalahan bagaimana menjaga data management dan menjaga kerahasiaan data, di mana peneliti kita itu kalau bertemu satu sama lain kita sangat antusias untuk bicara seluas-luasnya karena kebanyakan dari institusi pendidikan, jadi inginnya sharing ilmu, tetapi lupa bahwa kerahasiaan itu juga adalah aspek yang perlu kita jaga dengan sebaik-baiknya demi kepentingan negara juga sebetulnya, belum lagi kepentingan institusi masing-masing. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih. Mungkin bisa ditambahkan Pak Indra dan Bu Iin sedikit.
Ya, menambahkan sedikit dari Dr. Budiman. Sebenarnya kita sangat bersyukur di Indonesia itu kita punya satu contoh yaitu vaksin merah putih. Meskipun sebenarnya secara funding masih didominasi oleh stakeholders di kementerian lembaga. Tapi ini merupakan satu bibit yang memang sudah proven di national level. Nah, sehingga sekarang kan bagaimana menduplikat hal yang sama ke platform-platform yang lain atau ke produk vaksin lainnya. Nah, sebenarnya tadi menggairahkan research base itu sangat diperlukan dan ini nanti kita harapkan peran VOLARE dalam hal ini. Nah, tentu jangan karena ada desakan seperti COVID baru kita muncul gitu. Jadi sebenarnya kita ingin mengundang para researcher, kami terutama dari industri, terutama Etana, kami sangat siap untuk melakukan scaling up khususnya di mRNA untuk jenis vaksin atau produk biologi yang kita akan kembangkan di Indonesia. Nah, namun sekali lagi tadi butuh beberapa konsep atau model yang kita perlu, dan ini hanya bisa kita lakukan ketika kita langsung turun. Gitu. Forum-forum seperti itu akan kita butuhkan lebih banyak ke depannya, sehingga dari situlah nanti akan muncul konsep baku yang lebih fit terhadap Indonesia. Terima kasih, Pak.
Terima kasih. Mungkin Bu Iin ada yang mau ditambahkan, silakan.
Terima kasih Pak Rahman. Jadi terkait IP, memang IP ini salah satu isu yang seringkali menghambat pengembangan vaksin, atau khususnya kami dari industri, kita nggak bisa produksi kalau sudah prosesnya dipatenkan gitu ya Pak. Tapi saat ini sudah ada beberapa inisiatif yang sangat baik, sudah ada beberapa terobosan contohnya dari WHO juga sudah ada grup tersendiri yaitu patent pool yang bisa memberikan solusi terkait dengan paten ini. Mungkin nanti kalau dari Indonesia mungkin di tingkat negara juga bisa saja membeli patennya, kemudian kita beberapa industri bisa dengan bebas menggunakan proses teknologi. Terima kasih Pak.
Baik, terima kasih. Kami persilakan Bapak Ibu dari audiens, dari floor, jika ada pertanyaan, silakan Pak. Mohon disampaikan instansi dan kemudian ditujukan kepada siapa kalau ada yang pertanyaan spesifik. Terima kasih Pak.
Terima kasih Dr. Rahman. Tidak spesifik ke salah satu presenter, so this is just a general response. My name is Pandu Harimurti from the World Bank Jakarta. I think Pak Indra, we've met in Bali for the regional vaccine discussion. So just to bring up what we've had done, that I had discussion with Pak Himawan that this is one of the follow-up from the recommendations from the regional and country-specific vaccine manufacturing and research capacity study that World Bank did. And I'm glad that this has picked up, and also that the collaboration, the collaborative center has been established. Just to have one point regarding the role of the regional level coordination that can help country-specific needs and also investment needs to be elevated, I guess, through this collaborative effort, because country-specific demands for vaccine manufacturing and research investment is very high cost, right? And also there are shared conditions across ASEAN countries with, that has limited HR capacity, right? So by working together at the regional level, this will elevate what is called the bargaining power, and also the market itself. So will, at the end of the day, will increase the return of investment at the country level. So I just would like to bring that up, that there's the regional level approach, ecosystem approach will also help the country in specific investment. Over. Thank you.
Thank you Pak. Terima kasih dari World Bank Jakarta. Jadi ya alhamdulillah ada support yang bisa nanti kita follow up. Terima kasih Pak. Mungkin kita tampung dulu pertanyaan terakhir karena waktu terbatas. Pak Hari.
Terima kasih. Nama saya Hari. Just a quick question. Here representing the GP Pharmacy Association. The question to not targeted to all, but can be also a question to inspire us, is the role of the clinician associations in defining and selecting the prioritized vaccine to be formulated and manufactured locally in Indonesia, be it the Pediatric Association or General Internist Association or wherever it is. But we'd like to know whether they are also playing important roles in participating in this project. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you Pak Hari. So we have two comments, from World Bank and GKS. So if anyone wants to share some comments, Pak Indra, please.
I would like to cover both questions at the once. I mean, from the clinician perspective, like the Indonesian Pediatric Association, of course, we already align with the immunization program. But what I want to point out is actually the product strategic national. So I mean, let's put what is the short-term plan and what is the medium, right? So by doing this, and then we understand What is a must do it right now? What is the next to do in the next 2-3 years? So that's why, let's say we take PCV as the important rules because just add into the new program. So that's why Etana and also Biotis play this role. So from the government needs as the national product strategic and then become regional needs. So let's do it here in Indonesia as a spirit of harmonization, the ASEAN harmonization, and then by doing this, we also will automatically provide the equity of the vaccination in the region. So it will be made from Indonesia that cover more than 50% of the population in the Southeast Asia, also to cover the Southeast Asia region. Thank you, Pak.
Terima kasih Pak Indra. So because the time limitation, so we also offer the other panelists, jika ada panelis lain yang ingin mau menambahkan comments dari World Bank tentang financial support untuk bisa kita optimalkan dan juga dari asosiasi tadi Keslab, kami persilahkan jika ada dari panelis lain. Silakan Pak Budiman Bella.
So I suppose there are similarities and differences between countries. So it is very important that VOLARE try to address these issues and try also to initiate events or programs that will also include other countries from our region. Collaborations between countries will, I think, significantly enhance the development of vaccine because we have identified strengths and weaknesses if we have meetings together. This is at the R&D level, for example. In development of malaria vaccine, Thailand, of course, like they're very advanced, but there are other issues that requires Indonesia to jump in and help. Now, it is not just between these two countries, of course, because there are other countries that are very advanced in immunology and other related areas in vaccinology. Regarding the role of clinicians, well, we cannot say it is not important. It is very, very important. Studies that can get us information regarding immune responses is very important, and also immune protection, correlates, etc., will certainly requires collaboration with clinicians. Thank you.
Terima kasih Pak Budiman Bella. Kami mohon maaf karena waktu terbatas. Mungkin nanti ada pertanyaan bisa disampaikan langsung. Kami undang untuk memberikan aplaus kepada 5 panelis. Untuk selanjutnya kami serahkan kembali kepada panitia. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you to all moderators and also the speakers. Please kindly remain on stage because we would like to do a photo session. Once again, please give round of applause for our moderator and panelists for the insightful presentation and also discussion. Please kindly remain on stage because we would like to continue for the photo sessions. Okay, let's us do the countdown. 3, 2, 1. Once again, okay, it's enough. Thank you to the moderator and also respectful speakers. You are pleased to return to your seat. And once again, we would like to thank to all the speakers, respectful panelists, and also the moderator for the insightful topics in terms of the challenging and the R&D, manufacturing, procurement, pricing and finance, and also distribution and also user acceptance. And distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, as we can see in front of you, especially on the screen, there are some barcodes and you can download all the presentation that have been delivered by all the panelists in the panel discussion before by scanning the barcode in front of you. And once again, Vaccine Collaborating Center VOLARE Initiative and Indonesian vaccine manufacturing stakeholder meeting with DUKE-NUS has officially launched. I'm Santi Pradaini, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the organizing committee, extending our appreciation to each and every one of you for attending this opening ceremony here in the Westin Hotel and also through the Zoom meeting. Once again, may we have a round of applause for everybody here and also for the Zoom meeting. Thank you very much. That is all our agenda for the launching and opening ceremony. We hope you have a great and productive day. Once again, thank you very much. And we have also some announcement untuk Bapak dan Ibu. Acara dilanjutkan dengan istirahat dan kita juga sudah menyiapkan makan siang yang telah dihadirkan di foyer area. We would like to invite you for having delightful lunch that already prepared by the organizing committee in the foyer area. Dan juga untuk Bapak yang akan melakukan ibadah sholat Jumat, ibadah sholat akan dilakukan di basement 3. Sekali lagi, untuk ibadah sholat Jumat akan dilakukan di basement 3. Dapat kami sampaikan untuk Bapak yang akan ke arah tempat sholat atau musola di sini ya, untuk areanya yaitu dengan cara melalui lift yang ada di lantai ini, kemudian turun ke GF, lalu pindah ke Gamma Tower dan bisa menggunakan lift untuk naik ke basement 3. Sekali lagi untuk Bapak Ibu yang mungkin akan melakukan ibadah sholat, kami arahkan dari lantai ini